driving sustainable research. I am Nur Azliana Azizan. On behalf of organizing committee, would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate your taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. We hope you will learn a lot, and we have lined up for you to be a fruitful and engaging in this forum. Before we start our forum, I would like to remind to all participants to mute your microphone throughout the session. And for your information, this forum will be divided into two sessions with an average of 20 minutes for each question, followed by Q&A session that will be conducted at the end of the forum. Thus, if you have any questions or suggestions, please write it in the pigeonhole link that will be provided. So to begin this forum, we are pleased to have Yang Berbahagia, Professor T.S. Dr. Muhammad Nazib Suratman, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research of Innovation, UiTM, to deliver the opening remarks. Prof, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a pleasant morning to everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, Madam Moderator, Dr. Nur Azliana. Alhamdulillah, I'm delighted to be here today for the Coffee Talk 3.0 with the theme of the nurturing creativity and innovativeness in driving sustainable research. To begin, please allow me to express my gratitude to all the panelists who are also the members of the University Research Committee, JKIPU UiTM, for joining us today to share their perspective and experiences on the selected subject. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Hafizah Ahmad Nawawi, yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Nuryati Ahmad, and yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Harbinder Chit Singh. Thank you for taking your time off to be with us today, Prof.
Pleasure.
It gives me a great pleasure to welcome all the academics and researchers to our forum. So, ladies and gentlemen, the creativity and invention has been identified as a critical skill in the 21st century, particularly when we examine how both abilities can help individuals to reach their full potential through triggering good characteristics. These abilities have been deemed valuable in a variety of circumstances. I'm a fervent believer that in order to ensure long-term sustainability in research, we must strive for excellent and devise solutions to the restrictions of publishing. Ladies and gentlemen, according to studies, creativity is a multifaceted construct comprises of cognitive variables, personality characteristics, educational components, as well as social and cultural elements. Surprisingly, innovation is a prerequisite for long-term viability. It is a one-of-a-kind synthesis of sustainable development and human potential. In the globalized society, innovation has been viewed as a necessary individual quality. Considered as an interdisciplinary notion, research on this phenomena has been done in a variety of fields of study, including administrations, educations, economics, psychology, and sociology. As a concept, innovation has been characterized as the process of generating new and valuable ideas into products and practices that benefits individuals, teams, companies, and a broader segment of society. Apart from that, it is necessary to emphasize that innovations is not simply about coming up with a novel idea. It also involves the creations of good products. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this forum's objective is to motivate our academics and researchers to engage in publish their research. Without questions, research is a critical component of the society's development roads. Research is a process of resolving contemporary problems and posing fresh questions using practical and trustworthy methodologies, and creativity plays a critical role in this process. As such, we will address the concept of creativity and innovations as distinct constructions, as well as the relationships between these abilities in the context of sustainable research development. Inshallah, I hope that this forum would result in the most success in UiTM research and innovation agenda. Apart from that, let us not forget to apply the 3 R's as suggested by our beloved Vice Chancellor: reset, recover, and restore. To think creatively, to communicate in order to maintain the sustainability of the UiTM 2025 strategic plan, and to ensure that we keep it realistic and meaningful, inshallah. On that note, I wish everyone an enjoyable sessions and encourage you to pay great attention to these vital messages delivered by our esteemed panelists. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Muhammad Nazib, for the wonderful remarks. Okay, moving right along, it's now my pleasure to introduce again our distinguished panelists for this Coffee Talk 3.0. Here we have Yang Berbahagia Professor Datin Dr. Hafiz Ahmad Nawawi, Director Institute of Pathology, Laboratory and Forensic Medicines UiTM. Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Nurhayati Ahmad, Dean Faculty of Business and Management UiTM. And Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Habinderjit Singh from Faculty of Medicine UiTM. As introductions, as highlighted by Professor Dr. Muhammad Nazib, the development of humanity has been increasingly dependent on innovation and discovery. From this point of view, creativity is perceived not only as expression of human potential, but also understood as fundamental for societal growth. So we start our round 1. This question goes to Professor Dr. Nurhayati. Okay, what are your thoughts on academicians fulfilling multiple roles such as teaching, supervising, researching, servicing, and community contributions towards the advancement of knowledge and academia? What will be the best strategy for academicians to be able to fulfill all these roles and responsibility adequately? So we welcome Professor Dr. Nurhayati.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Thank you very much, moderator, for this morning. Dr. Nur Azliana, Yang Berbahagia Professor TS Dr. Muhammad Nazib Suratman, Deputy Naib Chancellor, Research and Innovation, my colleague panelists, Prof. Datin Dr. Hafizah, Director of iPerform, Professor Dr. Habinderjit Singh, Lecturer of Faculty of Medicine, and of course, my respected Professor, Associate Professors, and Lecturer. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts, opinions, as well as my experience about the topic today. Now, you did mention, just now, the roles and responsibility of academicians, and you actually said teaching, supervising, researching, servicing. It's actually a very long list of roles and responsibility. Academician and teaching role, right? If I look at it from that perspective, if we go back to 1956, UiTM started off, right, as a teaching institute, right? And of course, teaching has been the main forte, the main thing that we focus on. All right, and I remember when the time when I joined UiTM in 1987, we had what we call the ILCAM, and ILCAM was actually responsible to actually make sure that that we are good in our teaching, and still, even up to now, we have what we call here the Unit Center for Innovative Delivery and perhaps the Learning Development, right? And here you could see there is a progression about teaching, yeah? All right, teaching as a lecture in that sense, okay? So when I talk about, when I viewpoint basically academicians and teaching, yeah, that is our central role as an academician, all right? In fact, we spend most of our time in teaching related work, if you, and most of you realize in that manner. Now, it is a challenge to be a teacher, all right? Teacher in the sense here, basically, if you look at the university perspective, is being a lecturer, all right? That there is a very big task, a very big responsibility for us to make sure, yeah, that our clients, and when we talk about here, our clients here is basically our students, yeah? How we actually need to mold them, yeah? Mold them, right, when they enter into UiTM to become what we call here a holistic and balanced individual, all right? So our responsibility definitely is to understand this in terms of what are the things that they need to learn? What are the things that you can actually equip them so that at the end of the day, right, they turn out to be what we have actually wanted them to be. Yeah, and this is where our responsibility is to make sure that you take the time to design the delivery and the learning part there, so that your learning, the design of your delivery as well as learning becomes more current, relevant, effective. Yeah, and Alhamdulillah, your ITM has moved towards what we call ADAP models. Yeah, and that ADAP model is really timely because we have decided, or we have actually this kind of decided that what sort of UiTM product should we produce, all right? And of course, as a teacher, all right, you need to be an expert in your content. Way back in my time, you are masters of everything. I hope that some of you could share, relate to me during that time, All right, you are not supposed to, you are supposed to be teaching your subject, but then during that time, we do not have enough teacher, and that's where we have to teach, name it, marketing, management, and so on, even though you are from a different group. But things have changed now, all right? Now, and again, when we talk about the teaching part here, we have evolved. We have evolved from being we have evolved from being lecture-centered or teacher-centered. We have now evolved to become student-centered. All right, and that is something that is very good, because now the learning process is more on the student itself. They are the one who's going to be in charge of basically learning whatever they would like to learn, and we are just the facilitator. We are just the facilitators for the student, focusing on ensuring that the students are able to master the content delivery, able to actually be thinking critically, and so on. Right? Now, moving on to an academician and supervising. All right. Now, whether we realize it or not, okay, Angela Wright says that supervision is the highest level of teaching. It's not supervision, but it's highest level of teaching for academic. And because it is the highest level of teaching, therefore there is a need for you to have some training. During my time, supervision is as you go along. All right, you don't have that problem, but I think that is required in your ITM, and we are going towards that. And again, Zhao actually says that it is actually the process of fostering, enhancing learning, research, and communication in the education system. And for you to carry out that role as a supervisor, all right, we normally refer this role here through our experiences as an academician that we have gone through, and we actually improve our role as a supervisor, all right, over the years. And of course, when you talk about supervising here, it could also lead to what we call here the role of mentoring, right? But of course, there is a difference between supervising and mentoring, because when you talk about supervision, it's basically task oriented, while mentoring is about individual long-term development. Yeah. Okay. What else do academicians do? Okay. Definitely, we need to do research, right? And I believe the key functions of the university, like UiTM, is to inspire academicians to do research in area of interest, yeah, which affect basically the local community socially the most. And since research is the basic of everything that we do in our life, you can always consider academician and research as being inseparable. Okay, they work in tandem. Now, why do research? Because research actually expands your knowledge of a subject. It broadens your career horizon, and also it improves your professional competency. Yeah, and of course, yeah, when we do research here, and how we incorporate research culture, there is a need for you to understand that there must be basically a formal structure, a system, yeah, that actually sets the clear goals of research, or rather set research goal and being able to communicate effectively about what is the research aspiration of the university. All right, and that will trickle down to the faculty level. Of course, yeah. When you want to do, you want to conduct research effectively, right? There must be sufficient resources, right, for the researcher to carry out their research, all right, endeavor, and there are many things. Yeah. I hope I do not take much of the time here because my other kids would actually also add on to what I've said just now. But there must also be whereby you should have the involvement of students. And I talk about the involvement of students here to cultivate the research culture here in UiTM. It's basically looking at the doctorate students, the postgraduate students, yeah. And how do we actually have that environment by the students? Is basically through internship and so on, right? But then the tricky issue here now is that there must be a balance between teaching and research responsibility. Yeah, a lot of people actually have voiced out that they are so bored with teaching that they do not have the time to do research, and there are other opinions saying that we want to do research and less teaching. So there must be a balance in it. Okay, academicians and servicing. Right. I believe personally, right, as an academician, you must be prepared to serve the university or even at faculty level or even serve externally. All right. And this is important, right? Because when you serve UiTM or serve anybody outside there, it actually makes you more mature. Yeah? Because in fact, you are able to understand better in terms of the operation sides of the university as well as the faculty. All right, and you kind of develop your leadership skill by serving the university or even the faculty. All right, it doesn't have to be holding in the high post like a dean, deputy deans, and so on. Starting with basically a committee would be good enough. Yeah, but that would be a good way of looking. I remember when I interviewed some of the new lecturers. Yeah. One of the things that I asked them, what should you, how do you see yourself as in your ITM? And the only thing that they mentioned about is nothing to do so much about research, it's more like teaching. Yeah? But I would like to say that we have moved. We have actually now multiple or multitasking role here as academicians. All right. And again, there's always an issue of if I were to hold a post, right, will that take away my time in terms of researching, consulting work, and so on? These are always the issues that has been discussed or been actually raised among the academicians. Yeah, but I think if you manage your time well, you will be able to do most of that, right? In that case. And of course, the last part is basically academician and community. So when you look at that, I believe, I think during a lot of times where people have been talking about corporate service, social responsibility, yeah. But as UiTM, as a university, we should also be thinking about that. And a lot of things has now through our what we call here the Vision 2025, UiTM Vision 2025. You could see that we are now asking the academicians to be more and more involved in their community work. All right. And I think this is a good way of actually establishing rapport collaborations, right, with those outside. Because it is beyond what we call here the classroom experiences. And engaging yourself with the community actually reinforce your learning opportunity, and you also are able to use your expertise to kind of help to make the community a better place to live. And of course, this also would be something that is good for us in that sense. Now, example, at the Faculty of Business and Management, we had a project given by MOSTI, and that is known as Keboniti. And that Keboniti project is a very good project because it kind of enhanced the opportunity for B40 to actually have an opportunity to create jobs via agriculture and so on. So this is good. And we have also whereby we were asked by Ministry of Finance, all right, to help them to educate their employees with regards to the basic part of Islamic finance, right? Because they felt that this is important for them, all right, to have the knowledge. And I think, of course, if you look at all this roles and responsibility that the academician have to do, all right, is something that is expected as an academician. It's just that, what portion should you be focusing on teaching? What portion should be focusing on community and so on? It again boils down to what would be the university vision and missions. All right. So with that, perhaps I could pass it to my other panelists.
Yes, I agree, Prof. As you mentioned, in Education 5.0, ADAP is in education can be as a catalyst that promote civility, understand, and mutual respect among fellow human beings and toward our surroundings. Right, Prof? So how about your opinion, Datin, Dr. Hafiza, and Professor Habender? You would like to add some your thought about these roles as academia?
Okay.
Sila Datin.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Habender. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sejahtera kepada semua. Thank you very much for Prof. Nazif and the whole Pejabat TNCPI and Dr. Adriana for moderating. Okay, I just want to add on in terms of the roles of academician. I think I would like to highlight there are generally 5 roles as an academician in any university for the matter. Perhaps weightage can be, adjusted according to the different tracks or inclination and expertise of the various academicians. Basically, teaching and learning, that's core business. Research is another core business. Provision of services is also responsibility of an academician. Your role as an administrator, as a holding management post, ataupun leadership roles is another responsibility or roles. And the third one is community services, public advocation. I think Prof. Yati has highlighted the teaching supervision, which is a very pivotal, important role in academia. Research is equally important. All right. To me, all academics have to do research. All right. If we don't want to do research, we should be teaching in schools. But even then, you look at schools, if you look at secondary schools, even primary schools, they are very active into outside classroom sort of research activities. And even if you look at ministry which provide the core business as services like Ministry of Health, which is one of our main stakeholders in Perubatan, they are also very active in research in addition to their core business services. So therefore, all the more for us in the universities doing research, we are being involved in research, actively involved in research, is also a core business. Other than that, provision of services depending on your expertise. For us, from the medical, is providing service to patients, etc. And the other one, administrative role. You can't run from, depending on your level of appointment. Yeah, you can start becoming how to become a facilitator, vigilator, coordinator, right up to becoming a vice chancellor. So along the way, we will be given and trusted into various administrative roles, and that is good for us in terms of our leadership, inculcating leadership experience eventually into leadership roles in any field that we indulge in. The other important role is the public advocation, services to the community, right? So I just would like to perhaps, share a few tips with balancing the roles as an academician. I think it's very important to work with the end in mind. As what Stephen Covey said, to be successful, you always work with the end in mind. So you must be able to identify what are your goals and targets, what are expected of you as an academician, and have the targets have your goals and targets lined up and strategize yourself. I think for new lecturers who come in, the younger lecturers, I think you need to be familiar with the performance appraisal, requirements, what are the KPIs expected of you. And also for Kenaikan Pangkat, what do things that our employer look at in terms of your promotion. So for your career development, etc. And therefore, it's very important for us to know what we are being assessed for. If we are assessed for oranges that we produce, therefore we should be producing oranges. So we shouldn't be producing oranges when we are assessed for the apples that we produce. So I think there must be some synergy and some agreement on that. Yeah. And the other issue is on mentorship. It's also important. Mentorship program, we need to have a support system, including spiritual support, psychological, psychosocial support. And I think that is important. And the other one is in terms of time management. We have multiple roles. There is no excuse to say that we are too busy doing role number 1, therefore we cannot do role number 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's about smart working. Manage your time, work smart, and being able to categorize tasks which are urgent and important, or not urgent, not important. All right, so have a checklist and have long and short-term targets and goals and what you wish to achieve, and work towards that and work smart on it. And of course, you need support, from the management as well as people who are mentoring you. The other one is in terms of research, it's important to work out. We have to be creative and innovative also as to how to find protected research time and balance time between all the roles that we have. Ideally, it would be good. When I first started in the deanery in medical school in 2004, we get all our academicians in the faculty to have a typical week timetable, a typical week. And that will inculcate, the teaching supervision part, the research part, the service provision part, administrative part, as well as some time for public education, where there's opportunity to do so. So that's very important. You have to be smart in balancing your time between the various roles, and also in terms of balancing your time between work and the family. All right. And lastly, I just would like to say, most importantly, to enjoy what you do. Because when you enjoy what you do it wholeheartedly rather than you're forced to do it. So you're doing research, let's enjoy doing it. We'll talk about it a bit later in depth about that. And always be grateful, be patient, be honest and sincere with what you do, and stay positive always. Throw away, put aside all the negative vibes around you. Stay with positive people people who will be enhancing and working with you in a positive way. All right. With that, I think remember put in our best effort and best doa, inshallah, and leave the rest to Allah. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Latin. So to be a smart academia, we need to set our goals and target. Must have excellent time management, balanced support between spiritual, physical, and mental. And the most important part is enjoy with the positive, good vibes, right? Okay, so any Prof. Davina, anything you want to add regarding these rules as academia?
Thank you, Nur Dr. Diana. Thank you very much. Yang berbahagia Dato-Dato, Datin-Datin, Professor Dr. Muhammad Nasib Suratman, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation, UiTM, rakan-rakan sejawat, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati, selamat pagi, selamat sejahtera. Thank you very much for inviting me to share my thoughts, my experiences on this panel. Actually, my colleagues have addressed actually the issues on the roles and responsibilities of an academician. Quite a few. Of course, academicians are expected to be good teachers. They are expected to impart knowledge in a manner that can be imbibed by the students. They are expected to be good researchers. They are expected to generate knowledge. They are expected to disseminate that knowledge. They are expected to supervise. They are expected to provide community service. So there are a wide range of roles. There are many caps that an academician has to wear, actually. And to fulfill the expected roles and responsibilities, it is very important, actually. And this is very important when we also recruiting our academicians. Right? To know that there are many different educational qualities, as well as teaching and research skills that are actually needed to be an academician. More appropriately, to be a complete academician. Now, some of these, of course, are acquired during the PhD training, but there are also many skills that are not fulfilled by a PhD degree or acquired during training for a PhD. These skills, these know-hows, they have to be learned and acquired in the early years of an academician's career. That's very important. See, that's something which we must appreciate, that we cannot expect someone who has just come up with a PhD, joins the academia, and he's expected to do everything expected. We have to have the right atmosphere, the right culture for them, bring them in. So that's very important. I think, as mentioned about, they mentioned about this culture. We'll talk about it later on. Yeah. Now, no doubt, PhD is the highest earned academic degree, but it does not immediately make one, as I mentioned just now, into a full-fledged academician. Remember, PhD is just a license to start the journey in academia. It's like just getting a driving license and you drive on the road. Driving skills you're going to acquire as you go along. That is what a PhD does. It prepares you for just one part of the requirement, or a role, if you like. And that, even that is not complete. It just trains you in some aspects of research as an academician, but not for the other roles and responsibilities that are expected of an academician. So a fresh PhD graduate, when they come in, they will therefore need to acquire the required skills: teaching, administration, student handling, student supervision, and also skills to communicate with their peers, skills to communicate with the public. And once again, if I may repeat, and this is where actually we need to see the importance of mentoring, the academic culture coming. So this is how they will learn when they join, they see, they live it. So you learn what you live. So if we have the right culture, this is how we bring in new faces, in new academicians, and they will learn. All right? So these are important things. So for a fresh PhD graduate, as I mentioned just now, there is a lot more to learn in research, a lot more to learn, writing papers for publication. They still have a lot more to learn about how to write grant proposals. So they also need to acquire the skills and know-how on how to design curricula, for example, part of an academician's job as well. Prepare examination questions, for example, assess students, encourage personal development of students, and so on and so forth. I mean, there are so many things an academician does. You see that the public generally is not aware. If you ask, someone out in the public, they will just tell you, they will think that university academicians are just teachers. And it reminds me of something that was in the early 90s. There was something written by an editor of a local newspaper. It was in an editorial. And he referred to university lecturers as glorified school teachers. But I think there is a difference. I mean, the teachers, of course, in schools, with all due respect, I mean, they do a fantastic job. They are supposed to teach. But in institutes of higher learning, an academician is not only expected to teach, but is expected to also generate knowledge. And of course, presentation skills are also crucial. As an academician, you must have those skills developed. And no doubt, I mean, they usually improve as you go along and in good practice. And these days, most academicians are required to assess their quality of teaching from their own students' feedback. And this is intended to help them improve, the leadership and management style of the academician, as it were. But there's one thing that is very important characteristic that an academician must have. Criticism is usually not very fine in academia. Somebody has got an opinion, somebody has some sort of criticism, some is positive, some is negative, as Datin mentioned just now. But an academician must learn to handle criticism by remaining positive and confident in order to resolve issues or establish perhaps your own views. I mean, yes, even you have a view when you present something, there is bound to be criticism. That is part and parcel of university academia, actually. There is all kinds of discourse, and we must have that. And so what an academician must do is to use the criticism to him or herself. So if you want to succeed as an academician and be able to perform your roles and undertake your responsibilities as an academician, it is essential to be highly disciplined, organized, and understand your priorities. You should be able to prioritize your work as well. So these are some very important things and characteristics an academician must have to fulfill the roles and responsibilities that my colleagues in this panel have. Thank you.
Yes, Prof, thank you so much. All the tips and advice regarding how to be a successful academia and how we can fulfill our roles and responsibility adequately. So next we go to our second question. Eventually, research is an extremely vital element in the development part of the society, all right? Research is the process of solving the current problems and answering the novel questions through the viable and reliable methods. And also, creativity is the key factor in this respective process. So, Prof. Habinda, since most of us here are academicians and researchers, we know that research is very important. Yet, not many actually understood how our research contributes towards academia apart of just ranking. Can you elaborate on that, Prof?
Thank you. Yeah. Now the question is, why is research important in academia? Before I answer your question, importance of research in academia, let me very briefly elaborate on what we mean by research. What do we understand by research? Research, by definition, is an investigation or some kind of a study that is well designed, systematic, is done primarily to establish facts and perhaps to reach a new conclusion, if you like. That is what we understand by research. Research actually provides the evidence. That's why research is important in academia, or anything for that matter. It provides the evidence, facts that we need to tell from what is true or actual, and what is perhaps not true or incorrect. Research helps us decide that. Research in general also helps answer questions and solve problems. about that, we can see some examples as well shortly as to how research has helped us progress. So in short, basically, research provides objective data that is very important for arriving at conclusions or decision making. So that is what research. In general, it is one important factor that actually helps improve our understanding of things in life. It is an everyday thing, and if I may add, a must-do thing. Research is a must-do. It is a requirement. Now, because without research, we will make no progress in our understanding of things, and we will not move forward or improve our physical and material well-being. Now, research usually stems from a question, preferably good question. Now, I'll give you an example. This example has been quoted many times. It's a very simple question. Now, we may have not learned anything about gravity if someone hadn't asked the question as to why an apple falls from a tree. History has it that Newton asked that question. Some people at that time found the question very strange. They even found it childish, and some called it even stupid. Now know how an important question that was. That simple question led to research and the eventual discovery of gravity. Now, gravity was always there. It's always there, it just had to be discovered. But nobody thought about it until someone asked a question and researched to get the answer. Now, the reason I'm talking and I'm speaking like that is because this is what an academician should be doing all the while, asking questions, thinking about questions, formulating questions. That is what we should be inculcating in all of them. Now, today, of course, we have a definition for gravity and also ways to measure and express gravity. We also know a lot about how it impacts the human body. And all this has come about through research. If not for research, we would not know about gravity, we would not know about the impact of gravity. Now, similarly, if not for the research from the past years and current research, we would not have come this far so soon in our fight against COVID-19. So all the research that has been done over the years, and that's why we were able to quickly come to some solutions to the present pandemic. That is what research is. So therefore, in short, really research is a very necessary activity for the benefit and survival of mankind. Now, you may wonder how research got into academia. So coming back to your question, of course. Have you ever asked yourself that question? How did research get into it? Now, as you will know, research cannot really be done at home. Yes, of course, sometimes you can do some research with your cooking, something like that, garden or something. But generally, we know that it cannot be done at home. It cannot be done on the streets as well. Yes, some streets, yes, you go onto the streets, you ask questions, sometimes, yes. But really, truly, it cannot be done on the streets. And also, we must accept the fact that not everyone is able to do research or has the acumen to be able to do research, to be able to ask good questions, design studies to answer those questions. Not everyone has that acumen. These are skills. These are special characteristics that, that academicians must have. So research requires complex setups these days and requires individuals who have sufficient knowledge and are well trained in research to conduct research, find answers to questions that will help us understand and solve problems. So for continuity of research, it also requires a constant and continuous training of new researchers. And what better place than in places where knowledge is disseminated? That is the universities and the institutes of higher learning. So because of the nature of research and the nature of demand for research, the type of research, a lot of research today is parked in institutions of higher learning. What the society has done, society has entrusted the academicians, these institutes, to help conduct research and provide answers to everyday questions. So really, research in academia is actually a trust placed by the society on us as academicians to do that for them. So that is why research is important. So it has become a very important part of academia. Academia has to resolve around research, if you like. So today, those in academia, academicians, are therefore not only expected to disseminate knowledge, as we have been talking about their roles and responsibilities, but they are also expected to discover new knowledge or to generate new knowledge. An academician is both a teacher, and a good researcher, in my estimation, in equal parts. So, in equal parts. And if I may come back to your question and perhaps add just a little bit to your question, why research is important. In my view, the question perhaps should be why research and publication are important in academia. So when we talk about research, we cannot talk about it in isolation from publication. Researching without publishing does not really help anyone. And in my books, researching and publishing go hand in hand. One is linked to another, giving rise to the other. Research results in publications, and published research leads to scientific discourse, scientific discussion, scientific debates. And these scientific discourse leads to more curiosities, more ideas, more questions, and more research. And it goes on and on and on. That's what has been happening all these centuries. So I often feel an academician is incomplete when he or she is not researching. I also feel that an academician who is not researching is not fulfilling his obligation. And also at the same time, if you're researching and you're not publishing your research, I think that is also unethical. It's for obvious reasons. Your research has been funded by some public funds, some funds from somewhere, efforts and all that. So whatever research you have done, always attempt to publish it. It's important. Now, so from now on, when I mention research, I mean, automatically it will be including publication. So coming back to your question, why research and publication are important? Why is it? Now, I remember having read an article that was published in Journal of Further and Higher Education, some 10, 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And here, the parents of university students at 7 UK universities were asked a question on the aims of the universities. What is the purpose? What is the aim of university? The parents were asked, parents of students. Be surprised, or may not be surprised, the top 2 aims identified. The first one they identified was the university, the aim of the universities is to research and discover. More than 90% of the parents put that at the top. So there is no doubt that the society's expectation of academicians in universities. Research is part and parcel of your job. And teaching came second, by the way. There were, of course, few others, but these were the top two aims of a university. Researching and publishing activities are therefore expected of academics. As I mentioned just now, these are society's expectations. So why an academician is required to research and publish? Of course, one reason I've mentioned is the society's expectation. But there are also other reasons as to why there should be research, or the importance of research in academia, importance of research to an academician. There are other reasons. And we can mention that there are societal reasons, because the society expects you. That's the first one I mentioned. Academic reasons. There are academic reasons for doing research. Now, the research that you do and publish, first of all, it contributes to the growth of scientific knowledge. And that is an academic contribution. And when you publish your findings, you are disseminating information. and knowledge to the rest of the scientific fraternity. That's what you're doing. And that is an important part of it, very important part. Because this triggers a discourse and allows for scrutiny of your findings, your thoughts, your hypotheses, etc., etc., etc. And perhaps generate more research ideas and questions, as I mentioned just now. But this is how research breeds more research, dissemination of the research findings. Now, I will give an example to illustrate this. It's a little lengthy, you just bear with me, but I'll give you an example. And I find it a very useful example, primarily because it occurred during my lifetime, if you like. Yes, I witnessed it all along. Yeah. And some of it, not all of it, of course. I'm not that old anyway, but nevertheless, about 120 years ago, Pavlov, well-known Russian physiologist, I'm sorry to have to refer to a physiologist, being a physiologist myself, so I use this example. I apologize for that, but nevertheless, but it's a very important thing that I want to. And Pavlov delivered a lecture when receiving his Nobel Prize in Physiology. And in the lecture, he actually described the role of the vagus nerve in the secretion of gastric acid or juice in the stomach. There is a nerve that stimulates the stomach to produce gastric juice and gastric acid. Now, at that time, of course, a lot of the clinicians, a lot of the practitioners, a lot of the doctors thought that the stomach was producing more acid, and that was responsible for the gastritis, gastric ulcers, or peptic ulcers that people suffered from. So when they discovered this vagus nerve, that added to the paradigm of that time. They said, no acid, no ulcer. Of course, this paradigm remained there for a long time. And they used this paradigm to manage peptic ulcers. And what did they do? And this one I've seen myself when I was working in hospitals in UK in the 70s and the 80s. What they did was when somebody had this peptic ulcer, initially they will prescribe some antacid. They say there is acid, let's give them some antacid to neutralize the acid, and that will help heal the ulcers. But those did not work. It was just short-term remedies. They did not work. So then, of course, this vagus nerve came in. So the surgeons thought, well, now the nerve is there. We know that is the one that is secreting, causing the secretion of acid. Let's cut the nerve. So they started doing these surgical operations. They would divide this or cut this vagus nerve in the hope that it will decrease acid secretion and the ulcer will repair itself or heal itself. But of course, that did not work. And I've seen this personally myself. A lot of cases had that operation. Just a couple of years down the road, they'll come back with the same problem, and the ulcers are still there. And what would happen in the end? They had no choice. Some of them got perforated. Some of them were so bad that they had to actually remove part of their stomachs. You just follow the story and you see what I'm getting, the message that I'm getting across here. All right? Just bear with me for a short while. So this is what the surgeons did. So treatment of peptic ulcers was wholly managed by the surgeons at that time. Now, the story began to change later on. And why it changed? And that was because of research and publication. In 1984, there was a paper published by two guys, Marshall and Warren, and they reported a relationship between peptic ulcer disease and a bacteria, Campylobacter pylori or Helicobacter pylori. Of course, it was not a new thing, that it was not their idea to begin with. They had also relied on the earlier link that was proposed between dental infection and peptic ulcer sometime in 1916 and 1923. And what they did was, when they published this paper, when they actually found this Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori, in the stomach, this actually led to tremendous interest and more research into the role of these H. pylori in peptic ulcer disease. And this is what I'm saying, research breeds research. This led to an explosion in research in this area. Someone estimated that between 1992 and 2002, 10 years, more than 16,000 articles were written, more than 1,000 clinical trials were conducted on the organism and its role in peptic ulcer disease. So just that one paper, few papers then, how it triggered research and what was the result in the end. It actually completely changed the management of peptic ulcer. I'm sure there are many, many more, but this is a a typical example of an impactful research. It took a long time. The impact was evident after a very long time, but this is a typical example of impactful research. Right? So these are the reasons really why we need to research and why we need to publish. So these are the academic reasons that I was talking about. When you publish, it adds to the knowledge, and not only that, it breeds more research. Now, there are also institutional reasons as to why we should have research in academia. Now, sorry. So as you will know, research and publishing activities are today considered the most important elements in the ranking of universities. Researching and publishing activities as universities, they are also used as, if you like, measures or considered as indicators of the standard of academic programs, the universities. A university with good research and publishing record is always perceived to have good academic programs. Now, as you can see, why people want to go and study at Harvard, at Cambridge, at Oxford, and MIT, and so forth, because it's not that they have very good teachers there. It's not that they have very good academic programs there. It may not be. I'm sure there are lots of other universities, and I'm sure in UiTM as well, we have some fantastic teachers. We have some fantastic programs. Why is that people always think, oh, I have to go to Oxford or Cambridge? It's because of this perception. And how this perception has come about, it's because of their research and publication activities. You look at the number of Nobel laureates, from these institutes, and that is the institutional reason as to why we must make sure as academicians we do research and publish our research, right? Have reasons for research. Of course, as I mentioned just now, we have institutional reasons, academic reasons, institutional reasons. And of course, the third one would be personal reasons why we need to do research. We can't escape that. That is life, all right? Researching and publishing, of course, now is an absolute requirement for promotion in most universities all over the world. So really, as an academician, if you aspire to grow in academic world and in your career, you need to actually research and publish. So that's why they have this publish or perish thing, actually. Some universities, they are quite severe about it. If you don't publish, you just have to leave or you just perish. And the other personal benefit, of course, of research and publishing is that it gives you a legitimate ownership of a finding or a discovery. You have your findings when you discover something, when you publish it, you're the first to publish it, that gives you the ownership as well of that. So that is the reason why why research and publications are important in academia. You have academic reasons, institutional reasons, personal reasons. And of course, if you don't research and publish, you will never win a Nobel Prize. Yeah. So if I may recap, just to recap, research is an important activity for the betterment of life. And it is now part and parcel of academia. Research, most of the research in most places in the world, most countries, is part in universities or institutes of higher learning. So all academicians must develop the passion for research. Research should not be treated as just part of a job. There's nothing mentioned as well just now, but it has to be treated as a calling, as a vocation. So this is how academicians should be treating research. As they join the university, there should be no question about, whether should I be doing research, should I be having this track, or that track. Forgive me for using these words. To me, I think there is only one track. For an academician, track is disseminating knowledge and generating discovery. Just should be one track. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. And I agree with Professor Habindam. No research, no publish, meaning that no progress. Right, Prof?
Yes.
Okay, I strongly believe also that we do research and publish, and progressive research activity actually is an essential factor in our future society and strongly dependent on the creativity and innovation also, right? So that is why research is very important. So the panel, Professor Nurhayati, any comments on that?
Thank you so much. I think Prof. Habindam has highlighted a lot of points with regards to why research is important. Now, I would like to relate this to the experiences. as mentioned earlier, when I started off, UiTM basically is a teaching institution. So, of course, we were given all sort of skills with relation to basically, what is it, in terms of teaching and so on. So my first experience, of doing research, right? Back then it was with Prof. Mala and Wan Yun, right? And we decided, because during the time, I could see that research culture was slowly building up in UiTM. And we were asked, right, to go into research. So we started with looking at basically what we call here human resource development training, and we want to find out about that. But honestly, looking back at the output of the research and the process that I've gone through, right, I would be laughing at how I do my research with regards to the topic, as well as we were in a way quite ashamed, when we were asked by the panel, because we have to present our output to the panel, and a lot of things that we do not know. So you see, when we talk about research here, it's not about just doing any research. You must go through the process of research. All right, you must know what is needed to do a research, not just simply embark yourself in any research. There must be knowledge, there must be skills in research. And even so, relating to the experience of teaching students with regards to research methodology, right? Before I started off with my, PhD in the year 2002, I was teaching research methodology for the students. And my knowledge was based upon textbook knowledge, not going through the experience of research, which I actually embarked on in 2002. And again, I find that I have not done justice to my students because my knowledge in research is very, very skimpy, and because of the knowledge, lack of knowledge that I have in research, all right, I would actually would like to say, please forgive me, students, for not teaching you the right way of doing research. Honestly, all right, but this is from my heart. So again, adding up to what the points that Prof. Havinda had says, all right. Now, also when you do research, right, what it helps you basically is to build up your credibility. When you do research, So when you produce a particular output from your research, you're able to speak with confidence. Because why? Because you have done the research and you know your stuff, right? Rather than you do a research which comprises of opinion from non-experts, all right? And that would actually, in a way, people will look at you without credibility in that sense. The other thing that I find why research is important in academia, it's actually helps you to basically, right, reach out to people, right? When you do certain research, perhaps with regards to environmental issues and so on, right, you learn more. You learn more in terms of why the needs to champion environmental issues and so on. All right, so it added up to your knowledge. You become more aware of what's happening out there. All right, and you go beyond the raw data that you have. All right, you are able to share the real life stories. All right, and how it impacts the person there. Right. The other thing is that, well, I'm from the finance background, and of course, we have theories. We have so many theories. We have efficient market hypothesis and so on. But again, through research, you could actually, or rather, through research, it helps you either to actually support the theory itself, or actually not to support it, because you can't take things as it is, right? Through research, you could see if certain things works in a particular environment, certain thing doesn't work in it. So that actually helps you to have a better knowledge and thinking, all right? And the other thing about research, I realize is that as you engage yourself in research, right, it actually helps you to build up your confidence in the course writing. yeah, suddenly you realize that you're able to write. Of course, academic writing, yeah, in that sense, right? And with that, through that, your writing here, you're able to actually share with others your thoughts, all right? Now, the thing that I would like to highlight also is that a lot of people say, when I do research, do I need a PhD? Yeah, as mentioned by Prof, yeah, it is something that you earn during, right, your PhD time, yeah, and it's acknowledgement that you have achieved certain level, yeah, with regards to your PhD there, all right? But to me, out there, for those who have not started research, you don't need to have a DR. It is good. It is good for you to have a DR, yeah, because you have gone through the rigorous process of researching, yeah. But then, research is about skill, yeah. Of course, you have to have the knowledge, but it's also about skills, yeah. So when you talk about skill here, you can develop the skills, all right. I have a lecturer, yeah, who doesn't have, this is a profilic lecturers, yeah, who actually doesn't have a DR, but he's a professor now, yeah, but he has done a lot of research and he is a well-known researcher in his area, all right. So that kind of proves saying that, that you don't need to have a DR, but please don't quote me in that sense that you don't need to go for it for your PhD. You have to, yeah, it helps, it enhances, yeah. But for those of you who say, which I'm talking here about the seniors, yeah, you can actually start to do research. But of course, you need to build up that skills. Yeah? And that's where the mentoring comes in. Yeah? Get someone whom you're comfortable with, yeah, to work with you, to help you, to mentor you, yeah, to do a good research. All right. So that I pass it to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Nohayati, for sharing your experience. Okay. Okay, Prof. Datin Hafiza, anything you want to highlight or share your thought regarding question number 2, importance of research for academic?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azliana. I just want to add on a few more points in terms of why research is important in academia. I think both my colleagues, Prof. Abinda, Dr. Yati has highlighted very pertinent issues, but I would like to further highlight the importance of research in academia. It is a very important issue. So I think first point, I think Prof. Abinda mentioned about the taxpayers putting the trust in us, yeah, to do research, yeah, as a return of investment. I think it's an important issue. It's an amanah from the society, yeah, for all of us, particularly in academia, to do research. So I shall not elaborate further on that. And the other thing is, Prof. Abina mentioned about publication. That's very important. Yeah, that is one of the major outputs of research. And I would like to highlight, not publishing your research is unethical. You've got the data, but for whatever reason and excuse you have, you don't publish it. That means you deprive the rest, including the society, from sharing that knowledge. So that is unethical in itself. Yeah. Okay, the other points I would like to highlight, I think, as a research, which is important as a building, in terms of building knowledge and facilitating learning, I think that goes without saying. I think as teachers, as supervisors, all right, if we don't do research, we are defective, we are deficient in that sense. Because as teachers, we should be on the forefront with knowledge, yeah, updated knowledge, forefront, and state of the art. Particularly if you have expertise in certain niche area, you need to be on the forefront. As academia, we need to be on the forefront with regards to our niche area, at least. And also the state of the art, particularly in medicine. That is goes without saying. I mean, you can't be practicing something that people are practicing 10 years ago and you know nothing about what's the current development. So that in itself is a sin, because you are not keeping yourself updated on what's the latest knowledge and update about that particular area. And also, research contribute to new knowledge, generate new knowledge, contribute new knowledge for the benefit of mankind. Therefore, with updating our knowledge and being updated with what's latest, we be better teachers to be able to impart knowledge and to share with our subordinates, our trainees, including our students and postgraduates or undergraduates. And we have to ask ourselves, where do all this knowledge come from? Where do all those facts that we learn from textbooks comes from? as what Prof. Habinda has highlighted just now, it comes from research for many, many, many centuries and years. So that's how we benefit that. There's a knowledge, generating knowledge is one of the very noble things to do. And it's something, good knowledge we disseminate, is good for dunya as well as akhirat, if it's for the betterment of mankind. So therefore, important for building knowledge and also facilitates learning process. So if you are good researchers, you should be better teachers as well. And the other one I think is important is also to understand problems, issues, and increase public awareness. For example, in medicine, we research in certain area. For example, I do on familial hypercholesterolemia. With the new data I have, our group can actually contribute to new knowledge for the better of management or detection, diagnosis, treatment, etc. And making public be aware about it, right? So that is also very important. It clarifies things which are uncertain. There's discrepancy, there's disputes. Yeah, betul ke tak betul? Is it the truth or it's not? So research is about finding the truth and proving what is true and what is not, and what is not clear to be clearer. If not, provide a solution to it. Yeah. So, and the other one is very important in terms of problem solving and providing solution. For example, those of you who work in the industry, there are a lot of problems in the industry. So we identify those problems and we do research and provide solution. Sama juga dalam bidang-bidang yang lain, I am sure. Okay. And also with that, within research, we are being creative, innovative, and then we develop products, for example, new technologies, improvement of existing technologies. And in the end, that will lead to opportunities, in terms of commercialization, in terms of economy, in terms of giving job opportunities to people in the industry, etc. So it's good for the country. Not just income generation, but also cost saving. Maybe we find another modality which can save costs. Or in terms of cost effectiveness, not just it save costs in terms of the in terms of saving the complication of a disease, for example. So we have a new modality which prevents, say, premature coronary artery disease. So the cost is just not on the treatment, but the cost saving in management of patients who have premature coronary artery disease is a very expensive, in terms of the country's economy, right? So that's another benefits we can get from that. Okay, other than income generation I've mentioned to you just now. And I think Prof. Yati mentioned a very important point also just now with regards, it gives the love, the passion, and confidence in reading, writing, analyzing, interpreting, and making a conclusion. And what is the message to take home that you want to give to the stakeholders, to the students, for the stakeholders who may benefit from that, to the community, for example. So that's very important. Okay, and other than that, I think those are personal things, critical and ethical skills that you develop, which is also important, hands-on training, and also from the personal side, career development and so on and so forth. I don't have to elaborate on that. However, I think that research in academia is a very important criteria. And as what I echo what Prof. Habinda mentioned, if you are an academician, and you claim yourself an academician, you don't do research, you are not a true academician. Yeah. In terms of the institution, I think Prof. Nazib has mentioned this many times. It's an important ROI, return of investment, because how we perform on the yardstick of research and research related, for example, activities, is what the the budget that's given to us. So the better we perform, the better the funding that we receive from the respective ministries, and the better we can move forward in propelling research and related activities for the betterment of the university and the country and the mankind. I think, thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right,
if
thank you
I
very
may
much.
just add something. Actually, there's one important point that
Right, Prof. Habinda.
Datin has alluded to. You know, when you are an academician and you are a researcher, it really gives you a lot of strength in your teaching. It makes you a better teacher. You know, and And when the students know you are also a researcher, actually the perception of the students changes. So it's a very important aspect of my condition. I had personally myself, being in this line for 35 years now, I realized how actually research helped me to become a better teacher, more confident teacher. And I also had a colleague, when I was at USM, I was the head of department, and I had a colleague who just joined. And he, perhaps at that point, he did not believe research was necessary for him to be able to teach. He was a very knowledgeable fellow. I used to refer to him as a walking textbook of physiology. He had knowledge, physiology in the textbook in his head. But he didn't think that research would help him. But somehow, a few years down the road, I managed to persuade him, did some joint research with him. And his thinking completely changed afterwards. The outlook towards teaching as well changed. And he admitted to me afterwards. He said, Abinda, I must admit I was wrong, he said. After doing research, I realized how much it has helped me in my teaching. So there is no doubt about that. Actually, they are really, really linked, actually. If you want to be a good, impressive, and teacher, effective teacher, you have to be a good researcher too. Thank you.
Perhaps Dr. Yana, very good, Prof. Abinda. I just want to add on to what he mentioned just now, other than being a better teacher, that's important. The other one, in terms of our profession, for example, if let's say in medicine, we're giving a talk to our peers. For example, we're giving a talk. For example, last weekend, I was giving a talk to about 260 doctors in this country. I was invited as one of the panel speakers, and panelists for discussion during that talk on familial hypercholesterolemia, the current updates of management, etc. And actually, when we talk and we give our plenary talk, and we actually quote our own papers. This is done from our research group published in Lancet this year, and Malaysia, UiTM Malaysia is part of the study group, and we found this, and the message to take home, the state of the art, the most recent update on this is as such. So it gives you a better stand-eye, in the eyes of people, your fraternity, your profession, and I'm sure the same if you're an engineer or an accountant. So if you're giving a plenary talk for people in your profession, and you quote other people's paper plus your own paper, it gives you a better standing in the area, rather than from the beginning of the talk to the thank you slide, you're quoting everybody else's paper, not a single paper from you or your group. It doesn't give you an authority in that area, right? So that's another area. And as academicians, with a niche area, with expertise, and in a particular area, and I think as academician, we should be on the forefront, right? And with the research mileage that we have, will give a better impression as well as benefit to the audience and also people who are practicing in the area that you have the expertise in. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you everyone. All right, now we go to the third questions for session 1. This goes to Professor Datin Dr. Hafizah. Okay, what do you think are some of the key qualities a researcher should have or cultivate in order to be a successful researcher? So, can you share your secret to be a successful researcher, Datin?
Thank you very much, Dr. Azliana. Okay, this is a very interesting question, and I think it's something all of us in the panel and all the professors, I'm sure, are able to share with all our younger colleagues. But thank you for the opportunity. I try my best to share whatever little I have. I think when we talk about what does it take to become a successful researcher, I probably would like to focus in 10 minutes, about 10 minutes, about what are the ingredients lah. What are the ingredients? Number one, and perhaps a little bit of how to. How to. So in terms of ingredients to be a successful researcher, there are various factors lah. So perhaps I can just highlight to you, and then I try and talk around it, and our colleagues are welcome to join in with their experience. number one is to be a successful researcher is good, to have the academic culture. Because dia macam kalau kita belajar agama lah, ya. Kalau fiqh sahaja tak ada tauhid, dia tak jadi. Alright, so this is very important, the academic culture. It must be ingrained in us, alright? And we try to find opportunity to grow up in such culture. High academic culture and a great passion for knowledge and research. Yeah? Number two, we need to have the knowledge, at least some basic knowledge which we can have as a nidus to grow on eventually, and also the expertise. Yeah, and the thirdly is the skills. Yeah. Number four, we need to have some mentorship system. Yeah, I'll go into that briefly. And number five, I think networking capabilities or training for networking linkages is also important. And next is the leadership, assuming some leadership roles, being able to organize and plan, and to become strategic in your planning to a certain extent. And in addition to that, other than leadership role, also a good team player. Yeah. And lastly, number 7, that I will just briefly highlight on the attitude, aptitude, and the personality development, associated with successful research. Now, perhaps the first one on academic culture, that's very important, and the passion for knowledge and research. Yeah, I think that the ambience is important, having values, academic values, and having some experience on that, having mentors who actually inculcate, share that with us amongst the peers, and sometimes we need to have a carrot and stick phenomena as well. In most organizations, whether you like it or not, it has to be in place. Otherwise, human nature kan, kalau tak ada carrot and stick, dia tak jadi. Is complacency, and also appreciation for academic excellence. So that's all very important. May I share my experience with you when I was training as a young lecturer, as a registrar. I was working and also researching attachment. I had my training, postgraduate training at the Royal Postgraduate Medical School, University of London. And the academic culture there has been ingrained for many years. For example, every Wednesday is our CPC. CPC is actually clinical pathological conference where we present one case at least per week. And that's attended by the whole medical school, right? Let me tell you, the academic culture, when I first arrived there, is so phenomenal. It will be packed, macam ada movie baru keluar or something like that. The Stanford Hall will be packed. It's by default, 8 to 9 is the CPC every week. All right? 8:45, 8:45, you are late, you won't have a seat. Only the professors are assigned seat in the front. The professors in the universities are taken as leaders. Yang lain tu, you go and find your own seats lah. Right? You are late, you sit on the floor. All right? But the passion for research, they will just come in and they don't care. They sit at the steps, they sit on the floor. Janji ni dia boleh dengar, right? The presentation by the group of researchers and clinicians, which is beneficial for their academic development. No attendance taken, tak ada attendance online. Masa tu, of course, is physical attendance like we do in some medical school. Betul kan, Habinda? Right? We don't have to take attendance. Professor pun nak ambil attendance, kena datang. Alright? That's academic culture, number 1. Number 2, everybody participates in. Of course, the experts will be invited to give their view. And they will give just on top of their head, their expert opinion on something. The rest will listen. And they learn something every week, number 1. And all the CPC presentation at the RPM, at Royal Postgraduate Medical School, Hammersmith Hospital, University of London, gets published in New England Journal of Medicine by default. Whether they like it or not, the whole team publish that one. Within the next week, siap dah manuscript dia for New England Journal of Medicine. So that's, again, academic culture. And every Wednesday, I was training as a postgraduate there. Every Wednesday, by default, we have our journal read. Everybody in the medical school baca satu journal. It's a culture. Every Wednesday baca satu journal. Those days kita tak ada online, That was in the 80s lah. No online. But pergi library, go to the library and find on the shelf the latest Lancet, New England, whatever publication that week or last week at least, or the last 1 month, just to be at par with what's latest and what are people interested in. All right, what's the what do you call the top article for that month, for example. And of course, the respective departments will have their own journal club. So Wednesday is called Professional Development Day. That's the day we all take time off. Even the clinician, they are the clinical work, tengok patient pun, they take time off to enhance their knowledge on whatever field they want, right? And that's also the day the supervisors will all gather the postgraduate students and their trainees and their postdoc to have a journal club atau their presentation of their journal findings. Their research findings and they deliberate around it within a time period. Okay, what do we have after the CPC? Bukan nasi lemak atau nasi biryani. Just coffee, 1 cup of coffee each, and then some biscuits. Yeah, and 1 biscuit each. Kadang tak cukup, share lah, half a biscuit each. But it was a very fruitful session because that's the time we meet everybody in the whole faculty of medical school. Masa itulah kita kata, Prof. So and so, remember I refer you a case, we had a very interesting case, we are publishing as a case report and so on and so forth. Masa itulah kita catch anybody and everybody there. And it's something that we look forward for. Not the biscuit tu satu keping je seorang. Tapi is that academic comradeship. And that's how the collaboration come about. All right, have you finished the manuscript? Are we writing on this? That kind of thing. All right, so that's academic culture. So again, it depends on the ambience, the values, the experience, and the mentors. We as mentors, professors, have got a role to play. We have to give good exemplary academic culture practices to our peers, to our trainees, for example, and also amongst the peers. And second point is about knowledge, expertise, and niche areas. I think we need to have at least some basic knowledge, which we can grow upon. We can grow on with what we already have, coming back from PhD or subspecialty training dan sebagainya. So the first point just now, the academic culture and being passion for research, that is the element of want. Yeah. And the second point that I want to highlight is the knowledge and expertise, the expertise is the element of can. Ideally, can, boleh. So in other words, ideally, to be a successful researcher, you must have both. Number 1, you must want. Number 2, you must can. So if you want and you can, you just escalate. That's it. If you want but you can't, itu ada cerah masa depan. That means we can train you further. But the problem is, you can't and you don't want. Alright? Or even if you can, but you don't want. Yang tu saya serahkan pada Prof. Nazib lah untuk psychological counselling dan juga maybe career realignment. Macam BC kata apa tadi? Reset, restore, realign. Okay, so I think maybe
3R.
Yes, the 3R just now. So the second issue on the expertise, I think I agree with Prof. Habinda. Getting PhD does not mean the end of your career. You think you are at the topmost of the ladder. No. Having a PhD is just to signify that you've got some formal training in research. And like Prof. Yati kata, you don't even have to have it. If you don't have it, you are very senior now, you didn't have the opportunity or whatever reason, it's okay. But you can still propel yourself, and work together to get research going. But if you have a PhD and MD, for example, you are at the bottommost of the ladder and you build yourself up on postdoc training ke, atau get a mentor to lead you further and get further training, including soft skills, So research fellowship, sabbaticals, even some people, they pick up more things during sabbaticals, so you have expertise and knowledge on how to write a report, a thesis, dissertation, you had the experience, postdoc training, subspecialty training, for example, people in medics and related areas, hands-on training, and also attachment, specific attachment to a world-renowned cell culture laboratory to learn a certain technique and bring it back to UiTM. Why not? The third one is skills. You need to have the skills. And usually during the PhD program ataupun in your training as a researcher, you may have been exposed to that, but perhaps sometimes you don't, or you didn't have opportunity for that, and you can even have an enhancer or refresher course. It's important to have the experience, macam attending workshops for research methodology, scientific writing, and scientific writing includes, writing up proposal, how to, writing journal manuscripts, review papers, books, chapters in books, policy papers, CPG guideline, clinical guidelines, for example, clinical practice guidelines. And also PG supervision, right? You don't come back as a PhD, next day you become PG supervision. So it's always tagging along with the more senior experienced people. So observe one, assist one, then do one, generally speaking. All right. So, and then also learning presentation skills, communication. You don't just come back and then you are expected to just go industrial. You don't even know what to sell, how to sell. All right. So, communication skill, presentation skill, skill of getting networking and linkages, how to get an MOU with the university, with other universities, for example, at national, international level, with the industry, how to become expert panel based on your expertise at national, international, etc. And panel members, expert members, and reviewers, for example, to becoming reviewers for manuscript is very important, because when you review, you also look back on your manuscripts. I mean, how the review technique, because that's how you are on the other side of the table. When you're submitting, you're on the other side of the table. Okay. And also reviewing research grants, innovations, and then attendance at conferences, national, international. Of course, now with the COVID, you can still go online. But attendance at national, international conferences are important, because that's where you do the networking and linking, all right, as well as collaboration opportunities, etc. The fourth point I would like to highlight is on mentors. Get mentors with exemplary roles. And facilitation. Therefore you get facilitation, you get opportunities to your mentors to be linked to other groups of researchers for your collaboration and networking, as well as hands-on training and supervision. Before you further leapfrog and ready to move on as an independent researcher and form your own groups. The other important in terms of, I mentioned about networking linkages. Where can you find them? All right. For example, your ex-supervisors, your colleagues, your comrades, whom you work with when you were elsewhere, another university, abroad, locally, anywhere. And also when you were training together. Those are opportunities. When you go to conferences, again, there are opportunities there to be able to meet up with people in the same field and exchange ideas and look at potential opportunities. And usually when you present your scientific papers, and they are good and people are interested, and that's where sometimes that's how the collaboration move on. Let me share you my experience on FH, which we, alhamdulillah, published 2 Lancet paper this year. All right. It all started many years ago, of course, many years ago, when I was presenting papers at international collaboration. Of course, I have my ex-supervisors and my previous colleagues who have actually in a way facilitated the collaboration. But again, it gives us the exposure on getting networking and linkages. And once people, your work is given attention, meaning that they are interested in your study, you will be invited. You don't have to look for collaborators. You will be invited. For example, following our work on FH in Malaysia, which is part of an international, I was invited to bring Malaysia into that study involving 60 countries abroad. Across 6 continents, all over. Asian country ada 8. And Malaysia is one of them, spearheaded by UiTM. Alhamdulillah. All right. And again, following that, they invite us to be on the international FH expert panel. So that's how it's a chain reaction. All right, but you need to perform. You need to show that you are a good performer, meaning that you deliberate and you deliver on time, etc., and contribute significantly. So again, and then the other important ingredient is leadership. Leadership. However, in research, you don't have to be leader all the time. You must be a good team player as well. And it's not that you have to be leader all the time. You don't need to be a PI of all and everything, all the projects, right? Sometimes you are leader, sometimes you are a co-researcher, sometimes you are what you call a mentor within that group, not necessarily the PI. So good leadership as well as a good team player. And also you should be able to plan, strategize for the group. Yeah. And that is important. Yeah. Soft skill management, soft skill. Yeah, soft skill training is important. And there are many courses. ILD buat banyak. Yeah. And also online. And we conduct our soft skills. Yeah, for our trainees. For example, in iPerform. Courses on leadership, communication skills, presentation skills, right? When I was training, we had a checklist of skills that we have to go through. Communication skill, presentation skills, yeah, leadership skills, negotiation skills, time management, stress management, how to deal with difficult co-researchers, how to deal with non-performing postgraduates, how you should behave atau react ataupun perform as an interviewer and also interviewee. What to look for in potential postgraduates. Those are the kind of thing. Soft skills, but you go along. And when you have a mentor, it's even easier because he or she would know what is required of you because he or she would have gone through the whole works before becoming a professor, for example. Okay, and point number 7, I would like to, other than those things I mentioned, attitude, aptitude, personality is also important. And to be successful, soft skills is very important. Development of soft skills is very important, as I mentioned just now. And also a support system. Yeah, support system in terms of managing yourself as a researcher. Okay, so a few things. One is a few attitude and aptitude that's important. Wanting to strive for excellence and be updated on new knowledge, state of the art. And you like to create ideas, discuss, critical thinking, be creative and innovative. You have high level of curiosity, enthusiasm. Always ask the question, why? Why this and not that, Prof. Abinda? Why are you asking me to do this method and not that? Why this technique? Why are we going in that direction and not this direction? So when we are wearing a researcher's hat, we have to be hypercritical. All right, everybody in the team. And think outside the box. However, be a bit flexible. Research is always a moving target. If you're too rigid, no, we must do that one and not this one. We must, even as you well know, both my colleagues are very well versed on this. Sometimes in research, it's a moving target. Goalpost tu boleh bergerak-gerak depending on the progress of the project. Yeah, if you're so rigid, it can be very difficult. And also to have research ethics. Yeah, that's important, to be honest with integrity, because once you lie in research, you are out, right? Once you lie, you don't know when to stop. So that's very important. Persistent, dedicated, willing to walk the extra mile. Again, basically successful researchers should be able to do that. And high level of perseverance, self-discipline, always positive attitude towards any difficulty or failure. And remember, successful people always convert problems into opportunities. Always, yeah. And time management is important, not easy, but you learn along the way, balancing your various roles as an academician, as I mentioned just now. The other one is protected research time. You may not be able to do that on your own, but you should be facilitated into that. Yeah, and balance between professional and personal life is equally important. And lastly, you must be full of humility. There are times you are stressed to the ceiling, but the rest of the time you are so relaxed and enjoying what you're doing with the rest of your team. And generosity, sharing of knowledge. Nawai tu kena be clear. And lastly, be very grateful always to what we have. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with us, Prof. Datin Hafizah. Your 7 secret ingredients of key qualities a researcher should have. So next we move to Prof. Habinder. Any key qualities that you want to share?
Thank you. I think Datin has covered quite a bit actually of what is required of a successful researcher. I mean, there are certain qualities. I mean, just touch on some of the certain qualities, some of the personal traits, if you like, that you usually see in a successful researcher. And of course, these are the qualities we look for when selecting potential researchers or potential staff as well. But there may be some variation, some might vary depending on the type of research you partake or conduct. For example, market research may require some slightly different characteristic than, say, a pure laboratory-based research, if you like. But generally, in the main, all researchers must have some, if not all of, some of these characteristics that I have just listed down here. One, of course, is they must have the required intelligence. I'm not saying they have to have intelligence. I'm not required intelligence for what they want to do. I think there has to be sort of, if you like, a match, if you like. Yeah, required intelligence. That's important. And they must also have an analytical mind. So I think usually you find the researchers, successful researchers that we come across, they have an analytical mind. You notice that how they read things, how they look at things. They have a critical mind, but the critical mind is also that it's just not criticism. It's a constructive kind of critical mind they have, and that's important. Even with your colleagues, actually, whenever you are doing, whenever you're providing some critique, some kind of criticism, always ensure that you don't put your colleagues down. That is not academic culture at all. So you need to have a critical mind. So whatever you look at, when you read a paper, you don't just treat that, the whole thing in the paper as a gospel and that is the truth. No, you must look critically at the paper. The message the paper is, trying to get across. So it's very important. A successful researcher must have these traits, or usually show these traits. Required intelligence, analytical mind, a critical mind. They must also have an element of curiosity, if you like, and perhaps the creative mind that we're talking about. They must have. But in addition to these, they must have the courage as well to express that creative thought. That curiosity. Some people will shy away. The fear of, what kind of criticism it might draw, what kind of response it might draw from. But I think in academia, you should not have that. Have a mind, you have a thought, you have an idea. Yes, read out and get a feedback. That should be very important. They must have the courage to do that. That's important. And as we mentioned a few times, and Tatin also mentioned, discipline and focus is important. And you see that researchers, successful researchers, they're quite disciplined. They're quite focused too. They know how to prioritize things. So that is an important element. That's an important characteristic that they have. They must have the ability to think clearly as well. And not only that, they must be calm and listen to ideas. They must not shut new ideas out. They must have that ability to be able to listen to these ideas calmly and read as well when they're reading. Ability to think quickly, yes, reasonably quickly. And of course, the other traits you see in these people, actually, these successful researchers, and I have a couple of them as well. I'm talking about myself, by the way. So they must have the commitment and the dedication. I think that is, and apart from that, endurance is very important. And this is where some people actually, when they do research, they come across some failures, some, things, and they tend to give up. No, that is not. All right. So you must have the endurance and always prepare to try out new ways to answer the questions that you have generated. And successful researchers that you come across, they also have very good communication skills, both verbal and written. So that is an important characteristic that successful researchers have, and those who are wanting to become successful researchers must actually develop these skills. That's important. And above all that, I think one of the attributes, one of the most important thing any researcher must have is honesty, integrity. I think that is very important. And certainly, of course, mentioned just now, they have to be generous as well, but that is important, honesty and integrity. And also a researcher, a successful researcher, what I've also noticed is that you see all these senior people, actually, they have a very open mind, many ideas. They are just not closed within their own ideas and say that is it and nothing else. No, they're not biased. They don't have any prejudice against any other ideas per se. They're very open. I think that is a very important characteristic that researchers must have if they intend to actually succeed as researchers. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prof. That you highlight about to be a successful researcher. One of it must have an analytic mind. All right.
Yes,
So
yes.
to Prof. Nur Hayati, I also believe that the qualities that required to be a good or competent researcher can be broken down into more specific core competency. So what is your thought, Prof?
Okay. Yes. To me, right. Well, actually, when I look at what it takes to be a successful researcher, right, you could look in terms of the output, all right, from the perspective of the output as well as the input part here. Now, of course, when we talk about the input part just now, I think both of my colleagues have actually highlighted the fundamental qualities that you need to be a successful researcher. And one of the things that actually they emphasize, which I think is actually very essential, very important, is ethics and honesty. Yeah, and I do agree with Prof. Yeah, both profs just now, as in terms of yes, you must have that ethics and honesty quality, because there are times when you could see whereby successful researcher, but yet they are not being honest and they do not have integrity. In what sense? Perhaps they might manipulate the outcome of the research, right? And when you manipulate the outcome of the particular someone else's research, then you are actually not, respecting the research, the opinion, the ideas of the other researchers. The other thing is that you don't acknowledge the merits of others and you plagiarize. So honesty is a very important part. Now, what other things also that you need to understand is that now, sometimes in research, you may find that your finding does not in congruence or even concur with the previous study. So what do? Right? Do you hide it? No. You have to be honest and basically reveal what is your finding. It's not as why your finding does not concur with the previous studies. Right? Be honest about it, because look, sometimes the finding may not concur with the previous study simply because of the situation, simply because of the environment that you are researching on. So honesty plays a very important part as well as ethics. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I would say would be a successful researcher is that you must be a good organizer and planner. Yeah? You need to know how to organize your activities with regards to your work as well as the group that you are working on. All right, and you know how to plan. All right, if you don't know how to organize properly as well as plan properly, then I think that's where you will not be able to manage many research grants that you have. And also, to me, a successful researcher should not be greedy. Yeah? All right, you tend, I think, with regards to the financial incentive that you use it, but focus more on the research that you embark on with the grant given, right? That they can actually give you impactful publication, impactful to the society as well, giving back to the society as well as contribute to the nations. The other thing that I would like to also highlight with regards to what it takes to be a successful researcher is that now you have to be able to balance it, because remember, in the university you are not doing research only. You are not just doing research. You have also other responsibility, as mentioned just now, as being as a teacher, a supervisor, and so on, right? So there is a tendency whereby some researchers tend to be so bored with research that they tend to forget that you have another responsibility which is also equally important. Yeah? So the ability to balance between this responsibility, to me, constitute a successful researcher. Right? Let me see what. Okay. The other thing is that when you talk about a successful researcher, a cause is when you churn more successful researcher. To me, right? You have been a successful researcher. Now it's time for you to grow. And I could hear it from the time when we started off, right? the word mentoring seems to be important, and I will talk about it in a while. All right, but yes, you must have a good mentoring systems that somehow or other would be able to churn more successful researcher from a successful researcher. All right, and let me see what else did I. Okay, and of course, networking. All right, a successful researcher would definitely establish a very wide networking, be it locally and internationally. Okay? That is all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. So I just summarize here, a good and successful researcher must be open-minded, adopt a critical way of thinking, and a balance within our role and responsibility between academia and also as researcher, right? So Alhamdulillah, we complete our round 1. So everyone boleh tarik nafas dulu. Okay, next, now we move into second round. So this question goes to Prof. Noyati again. So as you mentioned before, there is important regarding the roles of mentoring systems that aims to help in research publications. Can you elaborate on that, Prof?
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Now, yes, I think that is very, very obvious because from the time we started off to discuss about what would be the role of academician and so on, right? The word mentoring keep popping up. Yeah. Now, when we talk about what is the role of mentoring system, it's basically a platform for you to nurture research and publication among academicians. Yeah. And of course, having a good mentoring systems would be able for you to connect researchers, increase knowledge as well as build skills for future goals and milestones. And of course, when you have a good mentoring system, you could also see you can the mentoring system could actually support the research culture that the university or even the faculty is trying to embed, and that's why you will be able to foster strong personal and professional relationship among colleagues in the context of research, as well giving recognition to the faculty with excellent research skill. So the word here is how. How do you go about with having a mentoring system? Okay. Well, there are opinions whereby you can create a formal mentoring system or you can create a non-formal system. But I guess, personally, in my opinion, I felt that a formal mentoring system would actually help. And the academician could see that there is a platform where they could actually go to and be a mentee if they need help in regards to this part on research. And the other thing is that the need to, when you have that system, then you need to have basically the mentoring committee. What would be the mentoring committee? But of course, to create a mentoring committee, there is a need for you to attract the right participant. Not everyone likes to be a mentee. Not everyone likes to be a mentor. All right. So there must be what we call here the characteristic of a mentor. Okay, who should be a mentor? So this is something that you must be able to understand. Now, of course, as mentioned earlier, to be a good mentor is not always an easy task. All right, only in certain university, in certain organization, a lot of people would not like to be mentored simply because they say they are busy, they don't have the time, and so on. Okay, so how do you choose a mentor for that mentor? Right now, choosing a mentor, you need to look at the person, the mentor itself, right? Here we are looking at the mentor willingness to do what? Definitely, number one is that the mentor is willing to share their experiences. It is actually good. Okay, all right. When we share experiences, knowledge, we gain more experiences and knowledge. But there are mentors who refuse to do that. So you must make sure that the mentor that you have must be able to do that, must be willing to do that in terms of to share their experiences. All right. And of course, when you say you want to share their experiences, it has to be related to the area of interest, right? It's kind of, it is workable, but I think as a start, if you want to create that mentoring system, you must match those mentor and mentee that have the same area or related area of interest, right? Otherwise, it would be quite difficult to start a smooth mentor-mentoring system. All right. Now, what else? What else? If you want to have a mentor should be willing to be an active listener. All right. Okay. There are times when the mentor-mentoring system fails. It's because the mentor dictate, the mentor impose what they want to do. So that is not basically what we call mentor-mentoring system. All right. You must be an active listener. And as a mentor, all right, you should be approachable. You should be available. All right. Okay. When the mentee felt that they need help, seek your advice, you should be there. Of course, not 24 hours a day, but you should actually spell out to the mentee, okay, when you are available. And when you spell out the time that you are able to you are available, then you should actually make sure that you entertain those requirements. All right. The other one is you have to be sincere as a mentor. All right, you must be sincere and you must be open. Yeah. All right. And the mentor here, when you talk about being sincere, there shouldn't be any hidden agenda. Yeah, hidden agenda in terms of why you have this mentee, because you could see the possibility of you gaining something. It should be a benefit for both sides. All right. Okay, the mentor as well as mentee benefit from that particular relationship. All right. And of course, sometimes people prefer to choose a mentor where they are an expert, they are the reference figure, all right, as well as they are the role model. So that is okay. That is okay. That will be good as well. Because I know, all right, some students or even some lecturers prefer to be related to a particular mentor because they know that the mentor is an expert in the area, right? Knows what he's doing or she's doing, and so on. All right. And being a mentor, all right, is to not be, or rather, please be constructive in your feedback, rather than being destructive, because you can actually tarnish the relationship between the mentor and mentor system. All right. Because I think the reasons why mentee comes to you is because they need you to guide them, right, to achieve a particular goal. All right. So don't be that person, right? Now, what would be the responsibility of a mentor? All right. Okay, you as a mentor, you need to address the problem, the obstacle, as you go along with the mentor system. All right. And try to solve, both of you try to solve whatever problem that is obstacles in getting to the objective of the goals that is attended. Now, the other thing is, all right, you can assist the mentee in developing the research project, career development plan, that of course is consistent with the mentee's goal, not with the mentor's goal, right? Okay, you get the benefit actually. You get the benefit along the way as you actually become, you have that mentoring system, but because you have to be thinking about, all right, how you could help developing the research as well as career development of that mentee. All right. A good mentor, a responsibility of mentor, we talk about just some characteristic. We're talking about the responsibility of mentor. As a mentor, all right, what should you be doing? You should actually encourage your mentee to go and seek research grant, all right, secure research grants, okay? Go and present, go and attend your findings at conferences, publish paper, all right, in index journal, all right. Also, you should be able to create opportunities to allow the mentee to meet your circles of friends, your networking, yeah? And that's where you can actually see the mentee learning more from having to be in that particular group. As a mentor, you cannot just set a goal without monitoring their progress, all right? It's not a good way of doing that. Your responsibility is to actually provide assessment as well as mentioned just now, constructive feedback, and document the mentee research progress as performance. And then when you look at in terms of mentor system, you must always understand that not necessarily, right? Having a mentor will guarantee that the mentee will do research and publish. That you will have to understand the consequences. All right. You have a noble heart. You are very sincere. You're very open. Your intention is to make sure that the mentee fulfill their goals and to meet their goals. But there are times when the mentee will not do progress as what we expected. All right. Now, the other thing that we would like to look here is also when you do the mentoring system here, you have to also understand the difference between mentoring and coaching. When you talk about mentoring here, it's about basically managing potentials. Okay, mentees are your potential. All right, and of course, definitely the focus is on now as well as in the future. But when you actually display your mentoring skill, it's normally based upon the experience. Most of us actually become a mentor based upon experience, but then you improve your mentoring skill as you go along. All right. And of course, when we talk about mentoring here, it's normally focusing on low to high skill. Right. All right. That is all from myself. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Prof. Hayati. So we clearly know about the characteristic and responsibility of mentor. So what I can get from your point is that we need to choose wisely the mentor. It's very important to choose those who are willingness to share the experience, similar area of interest, active researcher, and sincere. Right, Prof? Okay. Any more comments or elaborations regarding this mentoring system? Prof. Amina, Professor Datin Hafiza?
Hafiza, you want to?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Habinda. Perhaps I can thank you, Dr. Azalia. Okay, few things I just would like to add on to the roles of mentoring system in sustaining research and publication. Effective mentorship is certainly a very important component of success in early stages of career development as an academician and research. That is important, and that's linked to mentorship. If it's done effectively and efficiently, it can improve the mentee's productivity, self-efficacy, and also enhance his or her career development. Okay. First point. Second point is I agree that the mentor, number one, must want and can. That means want and can. They have the criteria to be a mentor, and they are willing. Secara ikhlasnya, they are willing to become a mentor, because a mentor can be very time consuming. So but this is imparting their knowledge, experience, and sharing with the hope that the mentee that they mentor will become better than them, so to speak. Okay. And that's important, because it's like getting the younger people to be mentored, so that they can be further facilitated in their career development, and they can in turn mentor other people later on. Now, and mentoring is really mentoring a younger colleague, a less experienced researcher or academician, is really the professional responsibility of all of us, particularly the senior academician or senior researcher. So it should be something that people are, unless you are maybe really in top management, really can't afford the time. But even where I used to work in, people in top management, volunteer. I would like to be a mentor because it's very fulfilling sharing your experience and your knowledge and impart to the younger generation. It's in a way, it's sedekah also. Yeah, on Friday ni kita beritahu lah. Yeah, it's a form of very noble sedekah. Yeah, and the other one is the ultimate goal of a mentor. What is it really? It's really to impart as much training, knowledge, experience, sebagainya, so that the trainee will eventually become an independent academician, including researcher. Yeah, and and the various responsibility include various aspects, including sharing knowledge and experience, but I cakap tadi, including skills, overseeing the trainees' work, yeah, and maybe giving some advice on how to constructive comments, yeah, how to improve it further, helping the trainee to make, in terms of networking linkages, link up to people and groups of people, be it industry, national, international, who will propel the mentees' career development later, yeah, in terms of collaborative research or exchange transfer of technology transfer, exchange of students dan sebagainya, as well as assisting the trainee ataupun the mentee for career counselling, future career development. Yeah, I take your point, Prof. Noriati, that ideally the mentor should be in the same niche area ataupun fraternity as a mentee, but not necessarily so. Especially when depending on what role the mentor would like to impart to the mentee, it may not be the person in the same niche area. You may need that if you are looking into specific research areas of common interest. But other than that, especially in, like, say, counseling the mentee in terms of roles of academician, how to be a successful teacher, supervisor, researcher, administrator, leadership roles, services, provision of expertise, yeah, and as well as public advocation. You need not have somebody in that same field that the mentee is in. Yeah. So the mentee in return need to reciprocate to the mentoring by taking a proactive role, yeah, in learning as well as developing himself, yeah, to finally become an independent and successful academician who can in turn train other people in future. All right. And several areas I think that's important for the mentor to consider concepts and also training, yeah, for training in development include things like research skills, yeah, and also soft skills, interpersonal skills, psychosocial skills, professional and career development, how to balance your time between the five, how to excel in all your 5 roles that is imparted onto you to excel in all 5 roles as academician yang kita dah sebut tadi. Alright, and several mentoring skills include various areas, but perhaps I skew it towards research. The main topic of our discussion for today is grant writing, yeah, grant proposal writing. So you can coach, yeah, a mentee in terms how to write a successful grant writing, yeah, grant writing, number one. And also to ensure with regards to grant that is both scientifically sound and innovative, that you have a high chance of that being accepted by the grant providers. The other one is how to lead a research team, and usually is learning by example, right? Leading a research team, how do you manage and monitor your grants in terms of progress, in terms of time, in terms of human resource, in terms of output, and how do you enhance the visibility of your research team and the output that is obtained from the research team. The other one is regards to ethics, yeah, ethics, ethical conduct of research, including application for ethics approval, be it human or animal. So you need to be mentored also sometimes how to apply, how to get it approved, and when is required. And also on supervision of, for example, the research students, the postgraduates, the postdocs, the RAs, for example, supervision. That is also a skill and an art. Problems faced, solution, how to overcome problem issues, and how to make it a successful supervision. Another area is on writing a publication, and that's very important. That's one of the most important output of a research grant, for example, writing manuscripts for journal, books, chapters in books, etc. And again, that needs mentoring. The other one is application for IPR, be it copyrights, patent, etc. And how to and what it takes to, So I think that's also very important. Other than that, organizing preparation for innovation competition, for example, about selling a product, apa makna TRL 1 to TRL 8 tu apa maknanya, what does it mean, and how do you pitch an innovative competition, for example. And also organizing workshops, seminars, hands-on workshop. One is participation, the other one is organizing. As I said to you just now, my principle, what I learned from my mentors is observe one, assist one, then do one. Right? So that mentoring is very important. And also networking linkages. The mentor plays an important role because bringing these few pairs of hands together and getting into introducing them to potential collaborators, be it industry, national, international level, and establishing contacts for future work, etc. Collaborative, joint publication, collaborative work, right? Exchange of students, IPR, macam-macam boleh buat. Tetapi for let's say a person who just came back from the PhD, maybe he's a bit limited in terms of his contacts, his networking linkages. So that's where a mentor should be mentoring these people and facilitating them. And other than that, a mentor can also arrange for attachment for specific skills and hands-on training, attachment, fellowship programs, bilateral technical transfer, collaboration, joint publication, as I mentioned, networking linkages. For example, I have facilitated one of my postdocs, through my international contacts and collaboration, to be sent to Perth, Australia for 3 months training, hands-on experience in a molecular lab and bring back the technique to UiTM. And not funded by UiTM, we managed through our collaboration to get international funding from professional bodies to fund our postdoc to be attached to an established center so that we can establish impact in Malaysia. So those are actually investment yang kita tak nampak in dollars and cents. But that person who brings back that, and if he or she has proven, for example, postdoc, to be an excellent worker trained by us for 5 years, for example, UiTM should keep them because they are an asset. It takes 5 years to train somebody to be at that level. And if you have to take a new person, you have to redo that for the next 5 years and lose them. But it's okay, boleh je sedekah kepada RU. Tetapi it's a loss to UiTM. Because it takes years to train. And just one last point, I just want to add on, for mentors, we also should have training the trainers program. All right, training the trainers program. What it takes to be a mentor, our responsibility, and even if we have been very senior in it, sometimes we need a refresher course as well. And for the younger mentors, I think it's good to have that, at least all the basic core essentials are all in place. Harvard, for example, when we have the international Professor Gordon William, who is one of our international academic advisor for Faculty of Medicine when we first started the program earlier in 2004, 5, 6, 7, the earlier days, he was our academic advisor, and certainly Harvard pays a lot of attention on mentoring, right? Mentoring takes a lot of they pay a lot of attention to mentoring because it's breeding and also enhancing, motivating these mentees who will be the future leaders and taking them to higher academic excellence, and subsequently ada kesinambungan, there's continuity of the sharing, the training of professional development. So with that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any more from Prof. Habinder?
Well, I don't have much to add actually, because I'll just a quick comment on the mentoring system.
So I believe that a strong mentoring program for a new or junior faculty led by senior professor in terms of writing workshop, research support infrastructure, intra-department collaborative work to disperse workload are also needed, right? So next we go to our next questions, which I think is so relevant to you, Prof. Datin Hafiza. We all want our research to make an impact on the world, right? But impacts can be so varied and unpredictable that can be seems very difficult to plan for the type of impact that we hope to have. So, Prof, do you have any idea or suggestions as how to ensure that our research output is highly impactful?
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Azaliana. This is a very interesting topic lah. Impactful research output. We always talk about impactful research output. All right, even if you ask for a proposal, itu a standard section of the research proposal template. All right, what are the expected? Apa janji manis you on this proposal you are applying? Betul kan? So, but you're asking for a grant, you have to convince the grant provider what they are looking for, number one, and also before that, ensuring that you can deliver, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be asking for something at the end you don't even deliver, you don't spend, you don't move with the project, the PI and the team, and lastly is a research project failure. Alright, for example, kalau kita invest 1 or 2 million in a grants, for example, there must be return of investment. Be it internal grant, macam Lestari dan sebagainya, be it DUX ke dan sebagainya, or be it national or international or industrial. So, when we are given a grant, it's an amanah lah, yeah, for the PI and the whole team to deliver what you promise, at least the minimum. Okay, so that's the mukadimah dia lah. Then I think what I would like to mention a bit is about in terms of impactful research output, what are they? Okay, and how to boleh sharing experience lah as what the intended for this panel discussion today for this coffee talk. Now, generally, what are research output that is being looked at? Depending on the grants. Lain grant, dia ada different skill. But I'm talking in general terms, yeah. Number one is publications, yeah. Number two, HR development, human resource development, people you train, yeah. Number three, innovation, for example, yeah. And number four, technology transfer. And number five, networking linkages. Yeah, and then that's output, and then there's also outcome. Outcome too is the principal helix, 5 area that we should be looking at. Okay, perhaps I will talk about that later. So what are the outputs? Number satu tu is publication. As I mentioned earlier, when you have a grant and you promise you're going to produce like 2 index paper, at least corpus, and then you come up, close the grant with 0 publication. So that's not quite right. It's an amanah that's given to number one. Unless there is strong justification as to why you can't publish. There has been a real major problem with the project, which the reviewer can decide whether it's justified or not. But other than that, we should deliver at least the minimum. And usually I will get my research team to work together. We try and strive the best we can. The word is optimal, kalau tak maximal. Alright, deliver the minimal but aspire or target for the maximal or optimal. Alright, a high impact publication, usually the ones that is reputable. High impact usually is taken as the one that is Q1, Q2. Alright, but at least an index paper, be it for SNT, WAS, Scopus ataupun ERA. Okay, for the social science, and the high impact JCR Q1 Q2. Kalau di KPT they want JCR, that is WAS Q1 Q2 or Q2. All right, not Chimago. In fact, yesterday we had 2 days ago we had this presentation monitoring the TRGS di KPT. All right, not Scopus JCR Q1 Q2. They want at least WAS or JCR Q1 Q2. And based on the report of the 2 years before the date of publication. That means if you publish in 2020, they look at the JCR Q1 Q2 at least in 2018, 2 years prior. That's KPT punya ruling lah. But basically, you should be publishing your article. Doesn't matter. It can be, Scopus Index, WS Index, ataupun even my site. Okay. However, word of caution: try not to publish in non-index journal, especially now with lots of predator journals out there, where quality, credibility, integrity is not being taken care of in terms of publication, right? And other than publication, it can be research books, it can be chapter in books, policy papers, clinical practice guidelines, for example, and also guidelines if you are a panel on national, international guidelines or invited panel. If you are part of the two, is considered as a publication as well. At the end of the day, it's good for the profession or to the society. And also newspaper articles, abstracts and all that, But of course, they have their ranking. The topmost would be the Full Paper Index Journal, Q1, Q2, followed by Index, WS, Scopus, at least, and then books, chapters in books, but the rest are in the policy papers, of course, and then the rest are in others, including newspaper articles. Newspaper articles, or non-index, meaning either Scopus, non-Scopus, or non-WS index paper, or not my site, all that are non-index. And non-index, dia punya taraf dia, as far as KPT is concerned, is the same as others. Others tu, one full paper index journal is equivalent to 11 others, right? So 11. So you write 11 non-index full paper, non-index journal, sama juga dengan satu Scopus index journal. Alright, so why waste our time on that? And the credibility, some of them can be not confirmed. All right, so why take the risk? Just go for at least a Scopus, if not WS index. Okay, then the second research output is in terms of HR development. Usually it's taken as the postgraduates that you graduate or disembark on the project, be it master student, PhD student, even postdocs, GRAs, postdocs, RAs, and also scientific officers, research officers that you train in a particular project, as well as industrial students, dan sebagainya. Kalau ada exchange program, even better, And the other one is IPR. It can be in the form of patents, copyrights, licensing, trademarks, or even macam Datuk Zaki and a few others, they eventually come up with spin-off companies, And also, if you got some innovation, you manage to patent them and you can work with an industry and commercialize them, then you get a commercialized product. That is probably the highest level of IPR you can commercialize them. For Myra, for example, if you got commercialized product, you're able to sell up to say about 20,000 Malaysian ringgit per year. That is the definition minimum for a commercialized product. Then technology transfer, in terms of, as I mentioned to you, we've sent some of our postdocs, or even you can send your PhD student with your international collaborators. So there's technology transfer, there's exchange of expertise, or even infrastructure sharing and development, joint collaboration in terms of the research and publication. That also is considered as a research output, impactful research output. And the other one is networking linkages, either with the industry people outside UiTM, industry, for example, national and international level. So those are the outputs that usually the grant providers will be looking for. And usually for any grant application, there will be a minimum that you need to state and what the grant provider would put as their minimum required before they will consider your grant application. All right. But as I said to you just now, we should all strive to strike the optimum or maximum possible. Okay, that's output. In terms of outcome, I think we look in the bigger picture. And usually we refer to the quintuple helix, yeah? Number one, academia. Number two, what is it of benefit to the government? Number three, in terms of the industry, in terms of the community and society. And number five, in terms of the environment, yeah? For example, in academics, with, let's say you've got a big grant, yeah? Collaborative research with various universities, in the country or even within UiTM like the TRGS or LRGS, inter-institutional, eventually, giving high output to the academia, bring visibility and the emergence of a niche area, a hub, which can become a reference center for that particular area that you research in. Yeah. And also development of centers of excellence and even high centers of excellence as recognized by COE. We have ARI, for example, yeah, in accountancy, and we also have other COEs who have worked on our center work on atherosclerosis. We had LRGS grant, which is a five-year program which we completed, and with that, with the emergence of the COE, I performed. And we also have an international grant, for example, with NUOF, tu dua kali minta, second attempt baru dapat. So in other words, dare to fail and be persevere. Okay, and eventually you get that. So we get Nottingham, 1 million grant, also an FH with international collaboration. So eventually that will be good for the universities, right? As a centers of excellence, as a with expertise, yeah, multidisciplinary team with its referral hub. In terms of service, for example, in terms of research, in terms of collaboration with other national or international, or even the industry, yeah, once you have established your areas of excellence. The other one is outcome in terms of second quintuple helix is the government. In what way the government can benefit from our research? For example, in terms of income generation of a product, yeah, in terms of cost saving, misalnya teknik untuk menjimatkan electricity, not my area definitely, but cost saving, I can talk about the medical benefits. For example, my own experience, we have shown that if you cases which are underdiagnosed, familial hypercholesterolemia, if you diagnose them early, treat them early, you prevent premature CAD. And how much cost saving, that's already well established, right? So how it benefit the government in terms of per capita ataupun medical bills, yeah, medical costs dan sebagainya, and also opportunities for prevention of diseases, etc. And also in terms of government, in keeping if our research with SDG goals, for example, ataupun industrial 4.0, maybe dah 5.0 kan, okay, and as we go on, so we have to be up to date with what is the direction for the government and how we can help the government in terms of various aspects, including economy, cost saving, job opportunities, yeah, etc. And the third quintuple helix is in terms of industry. So if our research has got collaboration with the industry can come in. If we have technology and a product, we can license to industry, or the industry can take it up for good manufacturing practices, and it will benefit the industry as well. Good for industry, good for the government, good for the university. All right. So that's another output. And if we've got industrial collaboration, we can have bilateral technical transfer. We can send our students for industrial attachment. The industry can send their staff for doing, say, PhD or specific training program with us, which can benefit the industry, for example. Okay. And the other one is the community. The community is very important, is returning back, yeah, the amanah that the taxpayers and the community has invested on the university, giving it back to the society. Contohnya in terms of health and well-being. Forgive me for quoting a lot of medical, because that's my background, yeah. Health and well-being, for example, and how it impacts the society, how the society, the layman, can benefit from the products or from the output or from the findings of our research, right? So that's another area, how the community can benefit from your society. That's another outcome we should look into for an impactful research. And lastly, the environment. If you produce something that is of green technology, for example, we have this product called FH Screen, which is an app where you don't need paper, it's paperless, it's less laborious, less time consuming, increase awareness, etc., 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 including saving the environment. That's another asset in terms of a particular research project, and that's another output that is impactful, other than impactful in terms of its outcome to the academia, to the government, to the industry, to the community and society, as well as to the environment. Okay, so how do we, just my last point, how do we then try to strive to achieve this impactful research output, right? Not one shoe to fit all, right? Depending on the field, depending on the various strategies and ways we can do that. In terms of publications, I think most of us have spoken about it. It's important to have training how to write a paper. I think all PTJs, or I think, for example, RMC, Renew, and all PTJs and TDs of PGI, semua tu dah buat macam-macam dah, ya. How to. So tepuk dada, tanya selera, you want or you don't want to learn, if you don't know how to do it. But if you know, then do you want to do it? Maybe you can, but you don't want. But why you don't want? So again, that has to be discussed with the management of the PTJ, yeah, and maybe top management. So publication, so attend writing skills, right? Writing skills, scientific writing skills. Prahabinda and I have been for many, many years conducted or involved directly in dari research projects, and I think it has shown various fruitful output from there. We also organize, for example, publication workshop to encourage the various research team members to meet periodically to discuss about their manuscripts, what to write on which part of the study. It's like writing a storybook. So how many storybooks you want to write on it? Telling one story at a time, what is the main message to take home, etc. So I think it's important to get that research team together and getting publication workshops or publication groups, and then get the publication out. The other one is brainstorming sessions. The other one is sometimes some of our junior colleagues, they have problem with language. Yeah, certainly I'm told UiTM Global has got a service called Language Service for Improvement. Yeah, they have several professors and supportive people dedicated to look into that, and each lecturer entitled to send like 10 manuscripts to get language support if necessary. So use them. Right? Use them. So because sometimes when English is not our native language, it gets rejected, not because of content, but because the language aesthetic value is not there. All right. So perhaps we can help our researchers on that. Also for high impact journal, if you have international or national collaboration with big data, the chances of getting a Q1, Q2 or impactful journal is very high, is much higher, all right? And as well as we have to look at the timeline in terms of publication. You cannot be sitting on manuscript like for 2 years, ada yang daripada, and many, many years, yeah? If you can't do it within a few months, you can do it in 5 years, all right? So we all need to set a timeline, yeah? How? But again, protected research time, all that we have to be very innovative as to how we can do that. So networking linkages very important for international big data. So I can share on the Lancet paper impact factor 79.3 to 1, which is one of the major journals in medicine, not easy to penetrate in without a big international data. That's my experience on it. Yeah, and again, the FH10 country Asia Pacific, which we publish in also Q1 journal, Q1, Q2 journal, and also the FH study collaboration involving 60 countries worldwide, including Malaysia, that has been able to penetrate the very high impact factor. So those are some of the need, and also some lecturers like some of our fellows have been able to get a lot of Q1, Q2 because they strategize and look at the Q1, Q2 journals, especially the newer ones, yeah, they are more receptive to the one that is high in demand. But nevertheless, there's still Q1, Q2. Okay. And another point is how, in terms of HR development, too, that's important. We need to have the training courses and train the PGs, postdoc trainees, etc. IPR, we must, as a impactful research output, we must be well versed how to get the IPR. Right? We must work closely, for example, with Big Com, linkages with the industry, innovation competition, and make our product visible, etc. And giving back to the society, community, I've already mentioned to you just now. And the other one, impactful research output in terms of networking and linkages, be it national, industrial, or international. That's another impactful research output, which will make our research team and research work sustainable, and perhaps it will flourish even better in the near future. If not during our time, but at least for our mentees' time. Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Hafiza. Whether our research is lab-based or clinical, qualitative or quantitative, theoretical or applied, the following tips that you mentioned before regarding 5 outputs and 5 outcomes was so important to ensure that our research is highly impactful. So thank you again, Prof. So, do you any additional anything you want to add, Professor Habinda and Professor Nohaiti?
Yeah, I think Datin has highlighted all the measures that are used to assess or quantify impact of research output. Now, I just want to actually, because it's an academic discourse at the moment, so I would take this opportunity actually to just leave a few questions. And I think this is being debated actually, the measurement and assessment of impact of, of research endeavors. For some reason that seem to be coming or have become more and more important in recent years. And maybe there are some reasons as to why it is important. But again, how accurately do we measure the impact? Are the measures really measuring the actual impact of these, or are these the complete tools, if you like, that we have? I mean, we don't have better, but that's what we have at the moment. But these questions we need to ask, actually. But before that, how do we define research impact? What is the definition? Yes, some people define the impact as the beneficial effects that research output makes to, for example, the environment, to the economy, public policy, or to services, to society, healthcare, or even to culture and to quality of life. But how do we measure this impact? The measures that we have, the tools that we have, do they accurately measure them? I mean, that's a debate. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. But I'm just saying, I think these, as academicians, we need to look at it, because I worry sometimes we are just following things that have been thrown at us, and we are not really looking at them ourselves critically and say, hey, what are these the appropriate measures? So we need to really think about that. As academicians, I think that is our job as well, and that is our role. We should think, right? And then should we call it impact? Should we call it value? What is the right term? What is the appropriate term? And then some talk about academic impact and non-academic impact. Academic impact is considered to be research, knowledge, contribution to a field of study within academia. And non-academic impact are impacts that go beyond academia. So how do we, how should we be considering it? So how do we quantify it? It's coming the same question. I have over it myself as well. And how do we quantify impact? We all know that research impacts are not easily quantifiable. Don't think it is that easy to quantify research. But as I said, I keep repeating, whatever we are doing, I'm not saying it's wrong. I do not know. I don't have the answer. But we have to be cognizant of that fact that, yes, we have some tools in place, but we must always have in mind that, are these tools appropriate? Should we be really pressing on them as much as we are doing sometimes? Yeah. So I sometimes think that the tools that we have, the current measures of impact, may not be adequate. But those are the best we have at the moment, unfortunately, but they may not be that accurate. So just like measuring or counting citations, H-index, and so on, they only tell us about the number of papers an author has published and how many times the papers have been cited by other authors. But is that sufficient for the assessment of impact of a particular research output? I'm not sure about that. Having a publication in a high impact factor journal, yes, I think that is very good, commendable. Yes, we can go. But how impactful has that research been in the areas that I mentioned earlier? When we look at, articles published in high impact factor journals, now you look at that, how many of those articles actually had added value to our quality of life? I do not know. I don't have the answer. I'm not saying they do not. They might. But I think we should look at those things as well. And look at these, all right? We have these high impact factor journals. There's some of the journals are there, have high impact factors for a number of reasons, all right? It's not that, the publications in those journals are actually making an impact to our quality of life or doing something to our life. I'm not very sure about that, all right? But I think this is something we need to think about. We need to, go back and think about. And also, how do we compare the output of, for example, a mathematician or a physicist with that of a microbiologist? I mean, it might not be impossible, but it will be very, very difficult. I don't think we have the exact tools at the moment to do that. Yes, we have a lot of matrices and all that they will come up with, but I do not know whether that is, they are appropriate. So, and also, there can be a considerable time lag, as Dati mentioned as well, between research output and impact. Sometimes it can be quite a few years, it can be decades as well. So how do you take that into account when you are, measuring impact? So, these are some of the things that we need to, think about. There is a lot of debate in academia about this. I'm sure there are people reading about it and they're talking about it. I do not know whether some people have argued actually that given all this debate and the messy thing that that's going on in this particular area, do we really need to bother about measuring research impacts? That's a question some people are asking. And I do not really know. And personally, I am not yet convinced about these practices, whether they are really helping research per se. I'm not very sure about that. We have to look at it. And I once read an argument, actually, somebody was projecting an argument about this introduction of measurement of research impacts and all that. And I think it was a very nice statement he made, actually. He said when light bulbs were invented, or telephones were invented, or when penicillin was discovered, or when vaccines were first produced, was there anyone talking about research impacts at that time? I don't think so. So why now? Why are we so much engrossed in this? That's a question I ask. Why are we so much engrossed in this impactful research? Measurements of impactful research? I do not know. I have an open mind. As I say, I still have an open mind on these issues. And I'm just putting it, don't get me wrong. I think you have, that's what the tools we have at the moment. And I think she quite rightly mentioned those are the things that we use to measure. But I'm just asking some questions from all the academicians here, perhaps something we need to think about, debate about, and as an academic institution, I think we need to think about that. So for me as an academician, I think research in every or any area of science, art is important. The most important thing is one must have a good research question, good research design, methodology to answer that question. And the research has to be meticulously carried out and legibly written for publication. I think as long as we do that over a period of time, I'm sure it will have some impact. And so for the moment, actually, all these measurements used for measuring or assessing research impact, I'm not very sure what I should say, but I think we need to seriously think about usage, visibility, as you said, and the purpose as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Prof, for lontarkan question to us. We need to think again. Any comments or any agreement?
What the audience, what comments they have on this.
Any comments
from the audience?
Would like to add, Prof Heti or Tatin?
Thank you so much, Mona. Now, I do agree with that, Prof. Avinda, right? We really need to ask when you say what is impactful research output, yeah? Is it just for a certain community or it goes beyond that particular community, right? So when we talk about impactful research, yeah, or even research for the matter, that it's not meant to generate citation or statement, but it's more towards increasing knowledge, change practices, forge meaningful connection what we did in our site. And yeah, when we look at it, we tend nowadays to think about your research is impactful if you receive high citation and so on, which actually is not. It's actually going beyond the citation metrics. Because you have to understand when you do an impactful academic research, it has to, as mentioned by Prof. Abinda, is that it at least has an impact or improve the place we live in. Right? So it is at the moment what we're looking at is more on the citation part of it. It's basically based upon the citation metric itself. But again, we need to try and do research that only academia would be able to understand. We should actually focus on how their research will be able to help solve issues, solve problems that the community, that the industry are looking at. All right? And yet, I do agree with Prof. Abinda that we don't have a measure to look at that part of the impact research. All right? And I could also see that this Professor Mark Reed, he says that what he feels as an impact research would be you are able to help people to understand an issue better than it is before. All right? And when we talk about impactful research, it's meant for you to help to change a particular perception, change a particular attitudes. And to a certain extent, when we talk about impactful research, it helps you to do things effectively in terms of cost saving, cost avoidance, and so on. Right? It also, when you talk about impactful, it's more towards the change of the environment, the ecosystem that we are in. Right? And also, as mentioned just now earlier by our two panels, will be basically the culture, right? In terms of changing the values, the attitudes, and belief of a particular. So again, just to emphasize that when we talk about impactful research, it does not just confine to a certain community, and it's not just about citation metrics, but it's more than that. It's about how it make a difference to the society and nations. Right? Thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much, Prof, for your clarifications on that. How impactful our research depends on different perspective. So, Datin, anything you want to add?
Perhaps I can just add on to what has been mentioned by Prof. Abinda. The ones that I mentioned just briefly just now are the research output impact parameters that is currently being used nationally as well as globally.
That's right. Yes.
And certainly, I agree with him. That is by no means exhaustive. There might be some differences in opinion what we should use as measures for research output and impact. However, I think if we disagree with what is currently available nationally and internationally, we should come up with alternatives and how to measure them, and perhaps other parameters, and more importantly, how do you measure them? All right, and what are the indicators? I think we should focus on that so that we can suggest an alternative. And I think overall, I agree, we should actually look at the overall benefit to mankind, to the community, to the society. But in doing so, there must be some form of measure, like Prof. Nuriyati mentioned, in terms of cost effectiveness. I think certainly a lot of the projects, we look at the cost effectiveness of perhaps particular treatment A versus B, and what is the impact on the social, cultural acceptance, etc., etc. For example, we are working on the use of drone in disaster victim identification from the Maqasid Syariah viewpoint. So in terms of the religious, social, cultural, and the social benefits other than physical or just purely monetary benefits. Of course, we can look at it in a very comprehensive view. I agree with that, and I think we should be working towards suggesting what better alternatives? I don't have the answer either, like Prof. Aminda mentioned just now, but certainly we should be looking in that. There is another area of research as well. Yeah. In terms of the citation, I think it's not about just the figures, but I think the overall impact. For example, if it is a big data involving the whole continent, I can share my experience, for example, with the big data involving 60 to 70 countries worldwide across 6 continents. With that high impact publication, now it becomes visible to the health policy makers. In fact, now they are taking steps to change the health policies of the various countries who have not been looking into that as a health problem. So it gets to the attention of the health policy, particularly for the middle and low income countries. For example, the research that we are working on, where FH, the more than 50% of the global patients who have that disease are housed in the Asia Pacific region, where the funding is minimal compared to the more affluent Western population, for example. So with that findings, inculcating the Asia Pacific region, then there is more attention given by WHO, UNESCO, and individual national health policy makers to look into that problem seriously and perhaps provide a solution. So looking at it from the community, societal, and health benefits. So those are potential, because if it's not a visible publication and it's published without a wide readership, probably it's just confined to a particular cohort and area. It doesn't get the attention of the policymakers at international level. So that's the other side of the coin, looking at publication which are more visible. Thank you.
Yes, Prof. Visibility, right. Okay, we got. So we have another one questions before we reach 12. Last question goes to Prof. Habina. What are your thoughts on how we nurturing creativity and innovations that leads to successful output for both sides, research and administrations?
Thank you.
So,
Thank
Prof,
you.
yeah.
Azliana, thank you very much. Yeah. Now, question of how we nurture creativity and innovation. What do we understand by creativity? Now, as I understand, creativity is actually using ideas, new or old, to create something new or invent something new or develop something new. That's creativity. And innovation, of course, is in a way transforming a new idea or creativity into a product or an invention or into even an understanding, if you like, or into some kind of practicality. That's creativity and innovation. That's how I understand it. And of course, innovation usually arises from creativity. And whilst it's true that both creativity and innovation, they drive research equally. Research too helps sustain creativity and innovation. As I mentioned earlier, talk that research breeds research. So it breeds creativity, it breeds innovation. Good research further fuels creativity and innovation, as I've alluded earlier, actually. Now, if I may just go back to my experiences in my nearly 40 years of experience in academia. And we're talking about how we are going to nurture creativity and innovation in an academic institution. Now, in my nearly 40 years in academia, I've come to realize that academicians in these institutes, I'm talking about not only in Malaysia, because, talking about my experiences working in USA and in Australia as well. I've come to understand that academicians can be divided in 5 types of individuals. 5 types of individuals. The first ones are those that have a creative mind. They have the drive and perhaps also the ability and the determination to search for a place or an environment where they have the freedom and the resources to be able to express their creativity. These are like what you call the go-getters. Come across those people. Then they'll have the other type, second type, There are those who, they have the creative ability, but perhaps not a strong enough determination or the drive to realize that creativity. They probably need an environment, some support, some encouragement. So that's the second type. Then, of course, there are the third type who actually need some training, creativity, but have sufficient drive and determination. And these are the individuals, usually they make excellent team players. And the fourth type are those who need to be trained in creativity and also need plenty of encouragement. And they can move. They can move. They would add. They would learn some of these elements. And then, of course, you have the fifth type. They do not have much creativity. They do not have much drive. And they do not have any interest as well in research. And sometimes they are a little out of depth as researchers. So these 5 individuals. So if you want to nurture creativity, innovation, so you have to ensure that your institution is populated with the right individuals. First, second, third that I mentioned just now, or fourth. The distribution has to be right. So if I may repeat what I've said earlier as well, an academician is a person who not only disseminates knowledge, but generates new knowledge as well. So really to nurture creativity and research, you will need to ensure that the academic institute is correctly or appropriately populated, as I mentioned just now. You must have the right blend, you must have the right population. Just like in any vegetable garden, for example, you need to have the right kind of seeds to have a good, healthy harvest. If I may draw that analogy. Now, that is one requirement. You must have the right mix of the research population. There is also something else that is needed to sustain and nurture creativity, apart from having this, right? So you need something else that will help you nurture creativity, innovation, and research. Funding, of course, is very important. Later, and I think perhaps we may discuss that later on in another. But that is important. That is something else that we are. But what else do we need? What else is required apart from this? That is culture. Tatin had alluded to that. Ati has also mentioned about culture. That is the culture of research, culture of academia. Sometimes we call it an academic culture. We need that. Now, if I may just go back and use a very simple analogy again. You may have a Formula 1 car. So you may have the type 1 individual. You may have a Formula 1 driver, the type 1 individual, and the setup. If you do not have an appropriate circuit to race on, you're not going to realize the full potential of the Formula 1 car or its driver. I'm afraid this is a situation we have at institutes of higher learning country actually at the moment. I see there is a lot of talent. I see there are lots of individuals who are motivated, who have the drive, to have the creativity, but unfortunately are somehow inhibited or not allowed or do not have that environment for them to excel. Now, no doubt we have progressed a lot over the years, over the 2 decades, but we still have quite a way to go to fully actually realize the potential of all our academicians. Culture is like the F1 circuit. So when we talk about academic culture, let me just dwell on that a little bit. What is this academic culture we need to cultivate? What is it? What is it? We always talk about academic culture. Do we all have the same picture in our mind when we talk about academic culture? In general, of course, culture is often discussed as something that is, if you like, reflected in the pattern of human activity and symbolic structures that give these activities importance and perhaps significance. So that is how we sometimes imagine the culture, or we define or describe the culture or discuss culture. So by the same understanding, academic culture is something that is reflected in the working habits and the surrounds in an academic institution. Now, universities, if I may just go back to what I said earlier, universities are considered the major centers of academia and therefore are places where the academic culture is usually most evident or must be most evident. That is where you should see. It is in this cultural setting that they offer the experiences of learning and knowledge discovery. So that is the importance of culture. The culture actually we sometimes do not realize, we do not quite see it. The culture acts as a very good mentor on its own. You don't need a personal mentor in some instances. The culture itself can actually help you mentor. And that I'm talking about from personal experiences, when we learn things, for example, how to present, how to write papers, how did we learn it? Because of the culture. There was always people talking, there were always people presenting things, writing things. You just imbibe those things along the way. You learn what you live, if you like. So that's importance of culture actually. So these cultural settings are very important. So there are 3 characteristics of universities that contribute to the nature of learning experience. Universities are not only places where students are taught, they are also research institutions responsible for questioning existing knowledge and discovering or producing new knowledge. All right? That is cultural discourse, cultural activity. Unlike school teachers, university academicians are therefore, in most cases, virtually all cases, not only teachers, but also professional researchers, as we have alluded talking about this morning. Academicians are professional researchers. They are engaged in continual process of argument, contest, and debate about the findings of their research. This is what happens in academic culture. This is what happens in academic institutions. All right? This is what should happen in universities. And what counts as knowledge at university, of course, sometimes differs in significant ways from everyday knowledge. Academics are usually interested in what is generally the case. And for this reason, they base what they write on research. It's evidence-based, if you like, rather than purely on personal experience or private opinion. So this is a university setting, and we need to have the right culture if we want to nurture creativity, innovation, and we want to nurture, academia, if you like. Now, I asked a question earlier before I came. We talk about academic culture before when I started talk on this area. Do we all have the same picture? How do we imagine academic culture? What are the hallmarks of an academic culture? What is it that when you look at it tells you that is where academic culture is? How do we tell? I can think about 10 to 12 such things that will indicate to me that there is an academic culture. Some may not agree. There may be more. I'm not saying these are complete. It'll be interesting to discuss what others think about these hallmarks, if you like, these indicators. Now, to me, one of the major hallmarks of academic culture is where there is research or generation of new knowledge. That is one. Also, in a culture where there is constant dissemination of knowledge through active inquiry-based learning. It's not passive, through active inquiry-based learning. So this is another hallmark to me that indicates that there is this academic culture. Also, it's a place where, or culture where there is constant search for innovative ways for disseminating knowledge. This is beyond the confines of the lecture theater, laboratory, or tutorial rooms, So it's ways of disseminating knowledge that probably differs from that in schools as well. So that is another area where people are looking at how do we disseminate knowledge. Right? So this is another indicator to me of academic culture. But as mentioned by Prof. Hafiza earlier on, she was talking about this culture and she highlighted it very well actually, where, a culture where there is rich academic discourse, debates, there is constant and a lot of conversation of science going on all the while. That is an academic culture. Let's look back and think, how often do we talk about the subject of science or arts or when we are walking along in a corridor of building with our friends? Don't do that, hardly. When we go and have a cup of tea, for example, what do we talk about? But in an academic institute, the major part of the conversation would be on topics of academia. And so and to me, if this is happening in a place, that is an indicator to me that there is rich academic culture, because there is a lot of academic discourse. The other thing that I find that, in academic institutions, or where there is a culture, and work is not 8 to 5. Right? So because academicians don't go by clocks. Administrators, yes. Academicians do not. We don't stop thinking at 5 o'clock. We don't stop thinking about our work at 5. We don't start thinking at 8 o'clock. So really, I think, this clocking in, clocking out of academicians is actually really giving a wrong picture of academia to me sometimes, yes. And also, the other indicator of academic culture is where the working habits of those who are in that, they nurture all of these above, actually. So, and they do that. Work is done with pride and commitment. When somebody is doing some work, when they're research, when they're doing some, it doesn't matter what work it is usually done with full commitment, pride. And they do it properly. And that is an indicator to me, it's another indicator to me of academic culture. And of course, again, another indicator to me is when there's a lot of interaction, communication between members, and and there is a lot of respect for knowledge. That's important. And there's respect for diversity and differences of opinion. So you respect somebody's opinion differs from yours, you respect it. An equal amount of respect for similarity and differences. That is an indicator to me of presence of academic culture. And of course, where there is constant encouragement to peers and junior staff for participation in all academic activities. This is like mentoring. And it is without having to assign mentors. People will automatically encourage. In an academic culture, the senior academicians will themselves assume their professional responsibility to actually mentor the juniors and the newcomers. So it is a natural thing. So when you have the right culture, you don't need to have specific mentors. The culture itself acts as a good mentor, as I've mentioned earlier as well. Now also, in an academic culture, work is done with respect, pride, and it should not be done out of fear of superiors. That is not the right academic culture. It should be done with respect. And also with compassion and priority. And the other thing that, of course, you must see in an academic culture is there has to be constant care and respect for all persons and all forms of life. And one more indicator to me sometimes, I think, and it is really missing from some of our new buildings and all that, is the surrounds and the ambience. The surrounds, the way the buildings are designed, the way the laboratories are positioned, the place where the academicians' rooms are. Sometimes the geography of some of these places is just not right. And it does not, contribute to the academic culture, as it were. So really, we need to relook at some of these things. To me, that has to be right, and it should be reflected. Some of the things that we build, some of the structures, we do not know what they mean. They don't even reflect academia. So really, the architecture of some of the buildings has to be, thought about very carefully. I think we should have some academicians designing some of our buildings or university buildings. Having said all that, I think, to be fair, I must say, we do see, quite a bit of these activities in our institutions locally, but still, there is still quite a way to go. Yeah? Now, all we need to do is, of course, to increase the awareness of academia and its associated culture amongst all our staff members. And we need to bring forth these hallmarks, some of these that I mentioned just now, or practices into more prominence, if you like, where required, and to inculcate some of the missing ones to establish a rich academic culture in our institution. That will then, by itself, nurture creativity, innovation, research enthusiasm, right, into whoever walks into our corridors of academia. So that is very important. And there is one other factor. Yes, you have the Formula One car, you have one driver, you have the circuit, but it's one other thing that we need to seriously look at. that will help sustain creativity, innovation, research output, that is funding. Although research funding is somewhat better than what it was about 20 years ago, but I think we still have a long way to go. We need to have adequate research funding, really establish our academic institutions in the way an academic institution should be. So, as I mentioned just now, we probably need another forum to discuss about research funding in Malaysia. But for now, I think these are some of my thoughts on the importance of culture of academia in nurturing creativity, nurturing innovation, nurturing our young talents. Actually, that is very important, because we don't want a young talent coming into academia, and I remember somebody used this word very nicely, to commit academic suicide. It's a very strong word, but it is a thing that we must always think about. When somebody is coming into academia, we must make sure that they are allowed to grow and develop. They have the opportunities and the facilities to grow. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Prof. Avinda. Just a short opinion on this point. Maybe perhaps Datin or Prof. Naiti, you want to add?
Prof. You want to ask?
Prof. Noyati. Just a short addition to what I think Prof. Abinda has highlighted very pertinently on academic culture. I think that's the essence lah in any academia, really, academic culture. That's the tauhid part of if you talk about religious knowledge, which is the core pillar. If there's no academic culture, we can't move. Right, there must be the want and the want really, and the can. So anyway, I just want to add on to some creativity, innovation in sustainability of research. I think in a simplistic term, perhaps I can just mention 5 from the administrative as well from the researcher's viewpoint. Kan, 5 perkara. 1 orang, 2 ruang, 3 barang, 4 wang, dan 5 rancang. Yeah, so that is being used in most organization. Orang means human resource, critical mass. We need to have them, and they must be trained. And they must want, they must can, they must have academic culture, and they must be creative. And all those points we have discussed earlier, right? So those things we have to look into. Second point is ruang to infrastructure. We need to have a good research infrastructure that can benefit all without favor nor prejudice. Ya, walaupun di ruang guna sama ke apa ke, tetapi that infrastructure should be in place. Ya. Dan ketiga is barang. Barang means equipment, facilities, tools. Ya, that have to be in place so that people can move. Ya. Tadi it's related to equipment dengan tools juga. For example, the critical mass, not only researchers but also support staff. We can have the most canggih equipment in the whole world, but the human resource provision is not in tandem atau selari, in parallel with the equipment that we have. It won't move, or it will partially move in a very staggered manner. So it has to grow together. Then the fourth point is the wang to financial support. Given the current economic scenario, kita faham kita menghadapi beberapa kekangan. We have our constraints in various areas, particularly financial for the whole country, if not the whole world. Therefore, we have to find innovative, creative ways to get funding. Not necessarily just budget cut only, but income generation. So I think we have to put the brains together and come up with innovative ways for income generation if we want creative thinking, innovative thinking for a sustainable research ambience and milieu to sustain in any university for the matter. And the fifth one is rancang. So we need to have proper strategic planning, short term and long term, be it at PTJ level or within a research group up to the higher level, at ministry, for example, Ministry of Education, MOSTI dan sebagainya. So appropriate fundings must be there, as what has been alluded very clearly by Prof. Abinda. We have to find funds, innovative ways to get funds so that our researchers can move forward. So those are the creativity innovation in terms of the 5 core essential items, points. The other one is innovation opportunities. Yeah, I think Prof. Abinda has highlighted the definition creativity, innovation dan sebagainya. In terms of innovation opportunities, we should be innovative and creative and look at even success or even failures that we get out of research can be innovated into a commercialized product. Even if it fails, you have to be innovative, creative to come up with something that is useful at the end. So think outside the box, right? Never think about failure. Always be positive and convert problems or issues into opportunities. Number 2 is process needs. I know sometimes you are so bogged down with driving the output and the impactful research outcome dan sebagainya. The process, yeah. So you need to have support. Mungkin you support staff, or you get somebody to help you to do the write up. Because you're doing that, you're probably not writing out your papers with your very constrained time schedule. Okay. Then the other one, work with industry. So there will be consultative opportunities, and that could be used or even transformed into industrial grant. Particularly in situation, it's very difficult to get grants as lucrative as it was before. We have to look at other avenues, it be international industry dan sebagainya. And also, research opportunities can be looked at based on demographic data, which is changing. Contohnya, with this machine learning, deep learning, we can know what are the needs, yeah, with post-COVID contohnya. As you can see, there are different needs with the new norm. So that's another way of becoming creative and innovative. And people in vaccine development, that's probably another innovative, creative way to move forward. And I heard they're going to come up with a new center for vaccination development dan sebagainya. Okay, then the other one is changes in perception. Yeah, with the new norm, even things will change. It may not be back to exactly what it was before, but we have to look at opportunities. And also new knowledge that we get from research can be transformed into creative and innovative output, prototype dan sebagainya yang boleh diguna pakai for commercialization, for income generation, for example, and something that's beneficial to the society, community, to the country, and to mankind in general. So those are my few thoughts about it from the different aspect of being innovative and creative. And one more thing, I mentioned tadi, orang, ruang, barang, wang, dan rancang. The orang part, yeah, in terms of research, really, I think we have to put our brains together about protected research time. Now, if we want all our academicians to do research, we have to put our brains together and see how the lecturers could have protected research time to a certain degree so that they have space to do research and get facilitated into what the university wants us to do. With that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you everyone, to all panelists. I guess this is the end of our forum 2. Do we have a little 5 or 10 minutes more time? So let's move to our Q&A session. They have 4 questions here. I just put 1 question. They have put 1 from unknown. As you can see here, sometimes it's not that a lecturer doesn't want to do a research or teaching. If you are expected to do both and excel in it, please also make sure to provide a suitable ecosystem to support and nurture us. So this question, perhaps Prof. Davinder, you want Prof. Harvin, sorry, Datin, you want to answer it, or Prof. Harvinder, you want to answer it?
That's all right.
Prof.
Datin,
Naidi.
go ahead, Datin. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a very good question. All right. And I think coming from an academician, I feel for them, being an academician myself. And yes, of course, we are expected to excel in both. Yes, I agreed in total that there is a proper, and I said that many times in my sharing of experience just now, that there must be a proper support system, all right, to support and nurture them. And I think we've discussed at length just now about the mentoring. I highlighted the point about protected research time. And it's not impossible, it's very doable many of the universities out there are doing that. All right. And I agree with Prohabinder that all the research tracks, as it is now, we have research track. I know Prohabinder doesn't agree with that. Those days we do everything and anything within the 5 roles that we have. But the research tracks is just putting them in terms of the proportion are different. But the parameters that's required or the roles that's required more or less similar, but the weightage is a bit different. But research is definitely in all the research tracks. So certainly research for the research role, all the academicians need support for that. For that. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe 1 or 2 points from Prof. Hayati.
Yeah, I believe I know wanted to say is that it's not that the lecturer doesn't want to do research, not teach, because I think you have to teach as well, yeah. But I guess yes, right. At the moment, right, what I could see, 35 years in UiTM, of course, as mentioned earlier, focus was more on teaching, and slowly we moved towards research, and of course, along the way we have all those roles. We need to empathize with the lecturers, especially those who actually started, starting their career in UiTM. There must be a platform for them to nurture their research interests, right? At the same time, strengthening their teaching ability in that sense. So yes, I would agree when you mentioned just now that there should be a proper research culture. At the Faculty of Business Management, Alhamdulillah, under the purview of PM Dr. Amirul, we are trying to make sure that the young lecturers are engaged in research. For those who doesn't have a DR, because I understand their fear of going or embarking themselves into a research journey, right? When they do not have the basic skills of doing research. So we created that by, as mentioned earlier as well, that we have a mentor-mentoring system. So we are fortunate to have a very good mentor who actually take the time to even guide them in terms of how to and bring them inside the team to teach them. And of course, again, a balance of teaching loads versus the research that is required, right? It's different when you are you are a research university, so that's very focused. But we are a comprehensive research university, and we have to do all right. So balancing act there to make sure that we are into both or all that we have to mention is really tricky and challenging, right, for the lecturers. But I do say, I can say this, that at the moment, Alhamdulillah, the university is trying to look at those issues, and in fact, they have even created whereby those who are really into research, those who are really, who wants to do research, they are given that track, and that is a good one. So we could focus, and in fact, perhaps sooner or later, we may have more and more, though academicians who are interested to do research to go into that track. And of course, for those who are supposed to be doing both research as well as teaching, we have to look at a different method. All right, but yes, a suitable ecosystem need to be there. The suitable research culture also need to be there as well. All right.
Thank you. Anything last words from Prof. Winda?
Yes, I basically think actually the ecosystem, that's a very nice word for culture, I think. But I think what is required here is not just on the part of the institute, but also on the part of the researcher. Now, if you have a researcher, an academician who's enthusiastic, has the drive, I think the institution also on its part has to make sure that the facilities are provided. And now, how do we go about doing this? Of course, at the end of the day, it's all funding and money and, priorities and what have you. But if we are prioritizing research, then we have to make sure that, the research facilities available in our faculties are adequate. I think that's important. So that is the responsibility of the institution or the university. The other thing, of course, is all the administrators, the deans and the heads of departments. And what they need to do is, when you have people like these who are eager to do research, who want to do research, they should do an internal networking as well. Networking doesn't mean going outside and working with people outside alone, but internal networking. This is where I think, of course, the mentor-mentee system that we were talking about, I think comes into play here as well for people, who have this kind of problem. Right? So that should be used here. The deans and the heads of departments should actually help identify, because that is a culture. That's how it should be. They should not leave it to these young academician alone, because sometimes the young academicians do not know whom to approach and how to go about it. So really, I think the senior researchers should actually take the lead and either invite them or actually point them to the persons that they can go to, where they can approach and discuss and perhaps join, and then gradually grow and develop their own research niche and area. See, so, as I said, research breeds research, and that will breed funding and so on and so forth. So this is how it starts. So we really need to have that encouragement. And I think sometimes, in some instances, yes, the institution will have to really take the lead to make sure that that their part or their contribution is there. They have made the necessary contribution, provided the necessary setup for nurturing research. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps our morning coffee talk 3.0 sessions. As a reminder, please fill in your attendance in the link provided in the chat box. Okay, thank you so much to our panelists, Professor Datin Dr. Hafiza, Professor Dr. Nurhaiti, and Professor Dr. Habinder. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Once again, thank you everyone for gracing our event with your presence, and we truly appreciated it. Thank you so much, and Assalamualaikum.
Thank you.